Tension on deck. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Executive Perspective. As you can see, Rob's off tonight. He's got some family obligations. I think we have a really great show for you tonight. We have we're going to interview a retired deputy inspector and former lieutenant gubernatorial candidate and congressional candidate, Alison Esposito. So before we bring Allison up to the stage, I just want to acknowledge that it is National Police Week, and today started the candlelight vigil. Was today. Friday will be the actual roll call of the names. 363 names being added to the memorial wall in Washington, D.C. this year. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the sacrifice of all of those members who gave the ultimate for their communities, for this country, and also to acknowledge the sacrifice of their families, and that we always will honor them, remember them, and thank them for their service and for all that they've given. So without further ado, I will bring to the stage retired Deputy Inspector Alison Esposito. Allison, how are you?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Those were some great pictures at the beginning of the show.
Oh, you know what? It's funny. This is episode 64. And we did a countdown for the first 59 episodes. And I was like, oh, I gotta put something together. And I'm not the most computer savvy, and I was able to throw that together, and I think it came out pretty okay. Something, and it's tough too, because with YouTube, it's funny because with YouTube, you have to be very careful with copyright infringements, with things that you post. Like we can't even show videos that have music in the background because it's copyrighted, and AI flags it with YouTube, and then you get demonetized. You can get a strike if somebody makes a complaint against you. If it's a copyright violation, somebody makes a complaint against you. And sometimes you don't even realize it. I had Joe Cortez on, and he was a special guest host about a month ago. And we were talking, about facial recognition. And then he's actually in the industry. And we put up a video that he does as part of his presentation, and it had music in the background. Now, doing a presentation, not a problem. Even if you post it on X, not a problem. Next thing you know, we get notified, hey, you got a strike, you got a hit, and you have to remove the music from the recorded episode. So
now you have to start writing your own songs.
No, you have to, there's copyright-free music out there that you can actually get and you can use. So you have to find that, but it's trying to find something that fits. But thank you, it's good. Anyway, listen, we're already going left from everything, right? So yeah. It's been a minute, and that's one great thing about, I think, our profession in law enforcement and the culture in law enforcement is that you and I really haven't spoken since you left the job, right? Actually, probably since you left PSA 3.
Probably, yeah.
And then, fast forward, how many years? When did you leave? 22, right? So you're talking
20, yes, 22.
Almost 4 years later, reach out, and we start talking like
right where we left off.
Yeah,
right where we left off.
Saw yesterday, joking and everything else. So it's great to have you on.
That's the amazing thing about the job. It's not. This isn't just an employment. This is a lifestyle. These are the friendships that have been forged over decades, and it's also we share a common bond. We've gone through, how many major incidents, not even together, but yeah, we can pick up. There's strong bonds in this organization, in this field.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just.
No, I thought you froze. I was like, "Oh no!"
No. I have a comment here. It says, "Please read this. My father was a 30-year NYPD lieutenant and detective squad commander. Unfortunately, has Alzheimer's now. But because of Allison's father, my father got special assignment pay. Thank you." So that's from B40RA1.
Does he want to share his name?
Uh, a
private
lot of
message that?
yeah, no, you know what? A lot of times people can't because they don't want any kind of pushback from the job or anything for being
Okay. Well,
on.
tell him that I would
Or,
let my father know that.
yeah.
I know that, my father cared very deeply, as did I, for the officers he served with. So, you're welcome. And please give your father a hug for me, and I will keep him in my prayers.
And we're getting ahead of it, talking about your deity and your father, and here's someone else that says, please say hello to your dad. Why is your dad getting more love than you already? What is this?
Now, my dad gets a lot of love. My dad
Yeah.
gets a lot of love.
This
He's the quintessential goofball, but he loved his cops more than anything in
where
the
you
world.
got it from.
Yeah. It's very, very similar. In fact, I remember on a detail, he tore into some guys that were late, but it was like in his goofy manner. And then he's like, all right, guys, this is very important. I need you to go to post. And I was on the detail, and I was a rookie cop. And he's going, I need you to go set up. I don't need you to stop to go to the bathroom. I don't need you to stop to go get coffee. And he did a whole litany of things. I need you to go set up before you go get your coffee and blah, 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 blah. Now I'm standing there with a couple of older guys, seasoned guys from a different command. And here he comes bopping up the street now that we're on post with his cup of coffee. And the cop, this hairbag next to me, goes, look at this asshole coming up here. He told us we couldn't get coffee. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I not say that? I'm sorry. Sorry.
We're more. We got to wait 15 minits to go in, but that's all right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said
after 15 minutes, the F-bombs can come in.
Okay. Sorry.
That's not a YouTube special.
So no, I don't. But that was what the cop said.
Yeah.
And as my dad is coming up, and I just keep my mouth shut, and then he goes, "Hey, Allie, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Dad, just keep walking, man. Please, just keep walking. Just keep walking." And the guy is like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it." But that was my dad. He's like, "Don't get coffee, but here's my coffee."
Here's Simone DePaulo. Please say hello to your dad. I really miss men like him. So.
Yeah.
And then
it's a forgotten breed.
Most complained cop, who's that's Eric Dim from The Finest Unfiltered. He's welcoming you and makes the comment too that most active cops watch The Finest Unfiltered network in secret. LOL. So it's one of those things, and we know that. But all right, let's get to it. Let's let some people get to know who you are. So just tell us basically, where you grew up, and we kind of probably have an idea of why you decided to become a police officer and join the NYPD from the chit chat that we've had already. But tell us, what made you decide that you wanted to go into law enforcement and how that process worked.
So I grew up outside the city. My dad, he was a Bronx kid, and my mom was a prim and proper New England, Connecticut girl. How the two hemispheres collided is still a little bit beyond me. But I grew up in a town called Highland Mills by the Woodbury Commons in Orange County. That's, it was an amazing place to grow up. I loved it up there. I love it. I still have a home in Orange County. I think it's a fantastic place. And what happened was, don't tell my dad this, he's kind of in the next room, but don't tell my dad this. But one of my earliest memories of him was coming home in uniform. And my aunt and my mother always said that my dad was my hero. And very early on, and I've said this all over the country, he instilled within me the core value that those who cannot protect themselves deserve to be protected. We were always the ones that were, how you stop a bully? Not by wearing a wristband that says, stop bullying. It's standing up for yourself and those weaker than you. And that's how we grew up as a family. And I could think of no other profession in the world. That, and I wanted to do everything under the sun. So there was a combination, right? So I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. I wanted to have a seat on the exchange. I wanted to be an executive tycoon. I wanted to be an actress. And what I found is I could do all of that with the NYPD, and it was my fictitious horse growing up was Manhattan. My fictitious boat was the Manhattan Star. I knew I needed to live in Manhattan. I knew I needed to work in the city. And it was a draw. And I mean, I couldn't have been more blessed over the 2.5 decades that I was in the NYPD to work with, for, and, the most amazing cops in the world. And I love my cops more than my next breath of air. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to follow in his footsteps and join the ranks.
Yeah, it's funny because John McCarry says it all the time that people don't realize that, and when you're in the NYPD, you are a movie star.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not getting the proper fame and the money for it. But,
Absolutely.
But it's
Absolutely.
really true.
And I remember running. I was in a foot pursuit. Well, no, it wasn't a foot pursuit. I take that back. I was responding to a 13, and I was on 42nd Street, nightstick in hand, and sprinting down the street. And I kind of am slowing down because of all the traffic. And one guy says, "Oh, you must be an actress. You look like you must be an actress." It's like a pathetic pickup line. And I stopped and I looked at him and I went, "I am, and you're in my shot." And he ran across the street as fast as he could.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, you have to put on different hats every day. You're acting as a counselor, as a mediator, as a mentor, and a lot of times you are acting, for the public, but you're doing, it's a lot of acting, a lot of wearing different hats, but yes, it's a lot of acting.
So how old were you when you went in, and was it your first career? Or did you do anything before?
If I answer that, you know how old I am. Now that's like.
All right. So here we go. So
I was 10.
Here's the first slap, because you're the first female that we have on the show, and so it's inappropriate for you to say how old you are. But I don't think you're such a public figure. I don't think it's quite the secret.
I was 10. So no, I had to wait. I passed the test and the entrance and whatever, but I had to wait because I was under the age at the time was 22. So it wasn't my first job. I had plenty of jobs. I was a lifeguard for a decade. I was a bartender for a great many years. I even tried security work, which I didn't take to. Volunteer, EMT. I did all of that kind of stuff beforehand. Had a paper route when I was a kid. But so it wasn't my first job. I worked early. I had 3 jobs. Dad had 5 jobs at one point. I had 3 jobs going into the NYPD. I didn't even let go of my lifeguarding for a few summers. I was doing both. So I would.
It's funny you say that, because I think you talk to a lot of the retired members, and I think we all have very similar adolescence coming into our adulthood, into the job, where we hustled, where we worked, where we did more than one job. And so I think where, people talk about, we briefly mentioned it just before we went on the air, how different the job is, right? And how it's always an evolution, it's always changing. But I always say that the best gauge of a true cop is their work ethic. And we learned what a work ethic was before we became cops. Absolutely. And you see a lot of these cops that come on today, and they don't have much of a work ethic, but they've never really had a job. This is their first job, really.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and it's you need to have it. I mean, well, we kind of had it too, because I remember when I first came out, I was making like $728 every 2 weeks. They were making fun of me. I had to pay for a Coke and a Knish on a credit card. It wasn't. We had to hustle.
Yeah.
But you're right. Things changed, not with everybody, but there are people that took the job not having that drive. I remember. Being a sergeant in the 4-4 110 years ago. And this cop comes in after RDO court, right? And it's the 4-4. I mean, we're jumping. And he comes in after RDO court to give his slip in, and the desk sergeant says, "Suit up, I need you to jump in a sector car." And he goes, "Oh, you don't get it, boss. I'm on RDO." So the desk sergeant hit the wall and just take a breath, and then another cop like pulled the desk sergeant and dealt with that. But yeah, it's not your time. It's not. We did what was it, Operation Bravo, where you would do your tour on a 6 to 2, and then they would send you down to Fulton Street.
Oh yeah.
And then you do 2 to 11 and then have to be back for a 6 to 2, but they weren't going to pay the older guys to do the overtime because you were so new, it was cheaper.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And that's before everybody was crying about the 10, now 15 tour changes. We never cried about that when we were cops.
Because if you did, you got destroyed.
Oh, forget about it.
If you did, you didn't get any good detail, no more training. Like you had to go do your job, do what you're supposed to do.
And you know, if you told cops today that you used to go and buy lunch or dinner for the PAA in roll call, they don't know what that, like, why would you
28 plus 5.
Yeah, why would
you get the 28 with a $5 bill?
Why would you do that? Because they're the ones that are giving you the details. They're the ones before, you know, even like when I was, and we have some similarities that are going to cross paths in our careers where, like, I started out in the 7-0, and we'll talk about your time in the 7-0 a little later. And we had 50 cops on our FTU, you know? So roll call was making the assignments. So you wanted to, you know, get your fair share in the car or stay away from church in Flatbush and try and go south a little bit, maybe on an M, you know, whatever the case may be. But funny stuff. So yeah, so all right, so you get out of the academy, and where do you land? So, and wait, let's back it up and just clarify. We already established that your dad was a boss on the job. So do you want to just
well, yeah. So look, Esposito is there were two Espositos and 2 Foxes, right? And they were both Joe and Mike, which is funny. But my dad is Michael Esposito, former 2-star chief of Manhattan South. Joe Esposito, Chief Joe Esposito, who we lost about a year and a half ago, unfortunately, who was a close friend, but not a relation. So he is not my dad. He was the chief of department. So just to clarify that's been a mix-up over, you know, my entire career.
Yeah. All right. So you wind up in, where'd you say? I'm sorry.
I put in the academy. I wanted to put in for the 7-5 and the 4-4, and somehow I ended up in Midtown South. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, what a shocker there, right? So listen, there's a lot. You're already getting a lot of love in the chat, and normally we don't bring a lot of the chat in during interviews, but I'm going to bring them in because it's a lot of good stuff. You might get some hate. You know, there's just people that love to hate and everything else.
Well, feel free to bring them in as well.
No, we will. I know you have no problem with it.
I have zero problem with the hate.
Well, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this up front because we do know each other from the job, right? So we talk a lot, especially in today's policing. We talk a lot about nepo babies, and we talk about nepotism, cronyism, people getting things that they don't deserve, and special treatment, especially bosses, upper echelon, chiefs' kids, and everything else. So you just mentioned you came out of the academy, you went to Midtown South. Listen, assignments out of the academy, you know, anybody who's what's called a legacy child is supposed to get their choice of command.
It wasn't my choice.
Well, it wasn't your choice, right? But your father made the choice for you that you're going to go there. So a lot of people don't realize, oh, yeah, you're getting taken care of. Believe me, trust me, as you hear Allison's career path, you're going to see that, you know, she earned what she got. Things were not handed to her. You're not the type of person that wants things handed to you either. And anybody that's worked with you, and as you can see, like I said, you get a lot of love in the chat. People that know you know what type of a boss are there. You know, that you know, you're not that person that was handed something. Listen, there's always going to be a little bit of, you know, special favor, but not to the extreme that we have talked about.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that, I mean, I kind of went the opposite, and I can tell you a brief story about that. I went the other way because I didn't want that. I wanted to make sure that I chose the path less traveled, and I chose the more difficult path so that I could, cut my gums. You know what I mean? Just get through it, learn. But I needed to learn. And I had to do that for me, because going up the ladder, if I didn't walk the walk that I was going to ask another officer to do, if I couldn't lead if I was going to ask somebody that I did not, or would not do. So that was the thing. And the funny thing was, I always wanted to go to emergency service way before I was on the job. I called them the boys with the toys, and they were the greatest. And I got to go to ESU, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. So I remember early on in the career, I was like, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half. There was a class going in, and one of my father's colleagues was like, there's a class going in. She wants ESU, put her in the class. I had like a year and a half on. And I said, no, sir, with all due respect, I appreciate that, but you're not supposed to put in for emergency until you have 5 years. And I'm not going to put in for emergency until I have 5 years. And then I'm going to put in for it, not float into it, and he shoved a piece of newspaper that he was reading in my arms, and he was like, sit down, kid, I'll tell you what you think. You know what I mean? And I was in my dad's office, and I had left the office, and it was no big deal. It was just, but that never happened. Now fast forward to September 11th. So we are sitting at the kitchen table after a while, after a few weeks, nobody went home so it was after a while that we were sitting at the table, and we thought that we lost Dad that day. The rumor was he was gone. It was a long day, obviously, for a lot of us. And but we're sitting at the kitchen table much later on, weeks after, I guess. And I was in Midtown South at the time. I did not go to emergency when I was told. And what happened was, probably 2 or 3 weeks maybe before the towers came down, my partner and I were chasing a carjacker, and he drove into the carjacker was going the wrong way, and we ended up getting into an accident. I went into the windshield and I broke my arm. And having the broken arm and not being an emergency, may have changed the course of my life. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, we're having a conversation with Dad, and he said something about the amount of officers that emergency lost. And I said, yeah, Dad. And if you had taken control of my career path, then it would be on you if I was one of those cops that never made it out. And he didn't say anything. He got up, he walked out of the kitchen, and he realized that he could never and would never interfere in my job, in my career path, in my trajectory, in whatever choices I made again, because at the end of the day, it's an incredibly dangerous job. And he did not want the responsibility of putting me in a place where I got injured. And believe me, he got plenty of calls in the middle of the night. Your daughter's been in a severe accident. We don't know her status. We're sending highway for you, things like that. So he walked out that day and was very quiet. And after that, it was my career.
All right. So you're doing patrol in Midtown South. And before we go on, like I said, you're getting a lot of love. And here's somebody we both know, Ricky Gundacker. Yeah.
What's up, Rick?
I love for both of you. Ron PD, 51 George. We worked on an ambulance together at St. Vinny's Hospital on Staten Island.
Wow.
And Allison back in the ESU, and now he's watching from Charlotte. So Rick,
Rick, you did some job. It was like a year and a half ago. I saw you all over the paper. Congratulations. Still a great cop.
Yeah. So that's great. Love you, brother. Good to hear from you. So go ahead. I'm sorry. So you're doing patrol.
So I'm on patrol. Yeah, I did anti-crime in Midtown South. Your first command, I made some of the best friends. My crime team, we still get together for the holidays, you know, and it's about 400 years later. I mean, it was a great command to work in, and it was a lot of learning. I mean, it wasn't the worst command in the world, but anything could happen at any given time in the crossroads, you know?
Yeah.
And it was 8th Avenue when I came out that was no joke.
For those who don't know, I mean, obviously we have a lot of retired NYPD, a lot of active NYPD, but for those who don't know, when you say you work Midtown South, you know.
14th Precinct, Midtown South, Midtown Manhattan, mostly on the west side, a little bit of east side, but it's Times Square, the theater district, Madison Square Garden, that type of an area.
Right.
And
just to put in context, everything that's
but
going on.
It's not the area that it is today.
Oh no.
There was a pool hole on 8th Avenue that you couldn't go into unless you had an entire platoon. You know, there was 42nd Street had all prostitution and all strip shows and all. It's not walking through Times Square and getting accosted by Elmo. It was walking through Times Square and looking at the weapons shop, and the guy in the weapons shop had 2 different bags. And the crime teams would sit outside the holster shop, rather. And if they came out with a red bag, the gun was on them. If they came out with a blue bag, the gun wasn't on them, you know? It was a different world. We had a lot of fun. So yeah, I started in Midtown South, did crime there. From there, I put into, and I was accepted into the ranks of emergency service. And oh my God, that picture, I look like a baby in my daddy's uniform. I'm like 12. So yes, I went to emergency service, and that was the UN General Assembly. And I see, just like my dad being a goofball, which my sergeant at the time didn't find funny, but we had all the hazmat gear as well. We were hazmat specialists. And I said, "Hey boss, wouldn't it be a great idea if I went down to the subway portion of Madison Square Garden and put on my gas mask and just started running?" And he was like, "Get out of my face." You know? Yeah, so I did emergency service for a few years. I had a great time. I loved the tactical portion of ESU. I was interested in the hazmat section. I loved the medical section. I loved being, a street medic and saving people on the streets. And let me tell you something. Some of the ESU cops, they're like physicians, assistants, tactical medics. They're some amazing cops. I could have left. I could have done without the heights. I think that was my biggest. I did it because I had to do it, but did not enjoy that. I
was invited a few times to go on the walk up the bridge. Never did it. I never did it. It's one thing for me. I mean, I think I've gotten over my fear for heights, where I used to really get like anxiety. Mm-hmm. And to a point where now I realize I'm not going to fall to my death. But that just one thing is
when you're standing on that bridge, you feel like you can fall to that death. And even the guys were always like, "Hey, trust your equipment. You're only going to slide like 16 feet." And I'm like, "Yeah, but at the end of the 16 feet is you're going to get impaled. Either way, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. Whether I hit the water or whether I hit that, But I did. I climbed the Brooklyn Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, the Washington Bridge. We did the rappelling out of helicopters. I didn't mind the rappelling so much because I wasn't looking down, But walking down the bridge it's a sight. But I wouldn't have traded it because, it was one of the most breathtaking sights in the whole world to be literally on top of the world like that. Yeah. But I was always better with the heights when there was an actual job. So if it was training, I was really not a fan. But if it's an actual job, I was scope locked at what I was doing anyway. So tackling somebody on a roof, it wasn't as scary. I wasn't as tentative about that. But, walking up because just it's Sunday and we're doing training was not my favorite thing to do. So.
And talk a little bit about, we had John Latanzio on for an interview. I don't know if you knew John. He was up in Chuck 3. He's another guy I knew from back before the job with Rick, running around on the ambulance and everything. Tell us a little about your time in emergency. You know, people love to hear about that. I mean, we have Rob on the show. We had, you know,
Right.
we had John to go through his whole career. You know, and Rob has always given his executive perspective of emergency services and breaking down videos from, you know, his experience and tactical experience and everything. But, you know, the audience, this is your show. You know, don't be shy, and it's about you. So, you know,
I mean, we can make it about emergency. I mean, look, you got some great cops there, and it's so the best feeling in the world. Okay, so you're a cop, right? And the 911 gets called, and you show up, and the person who called you goes, "Oh, thank God you're here," right? It's next level, awesome feeling when you show up to a job and the cops called you, and their reaction is, "Oh, thank God you're here." Yeah. That is a next level feeling. I thoroughly enjoyed the tactical portion of it. Was fantastic. We had some amazing jobs. There was this one. So not all the jobs with emergency are not, you know, movie driven, right, you know, wonderful jobs. A lot of them are. The EDPs are always naked. They're always covered in some kind of grease. I don't know what it is. It's not, you know, it's not always the perfect Hollywood type of a job where we come in with the shields and the vests and, you know, we walk out and it's, you know, a happy ending. But we had some great jobs. It was a job that I remember. It was an officer. I was in Central Park with my partner, and an officer went into one of the churches, and he was in crisis. He was going to hurt himself. And it took us a while, but we talked him out of that, got him the help that he needed. He was in full uniform and an RMP, and it was a long day. I got to shout out to Mike Sweeney, who I was working with at the time. Mike did a great job talking with him. And even afterwards, you know, Mike and I talked to Gentleman Jack Cambria, you know, you always go through what could I have done better? How could we have done this? You know, but it was a fantastic feeling getting that cop the help he needed that day. And then, you know, like I said, every job in between, the greasy, the smelly, the stinky, the awesomeness, you know, I remember have you ever seen The Matrix?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, like when The Matrix, it's next level thought, right? And if they were getting shot at, they were able to move out of the way. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I met a raccoon when I was in emergency, just to give you a little context. Now I'm the rookie, right? So if it's the crappy job, I gotta do it. And now I'm learning too. So I'm working with my partner at the time, and he says, "All right, well, load up there's a rabid raccoon running around the housing development. Load up the gun and the darts and the ketamine and whatever, and we're gonna put this raccoon to sleep." So I load it up, and I swear to God, I mean, in front of 800 patrol cops, I shot that raccoon, and he went and I went right by. So I reloaded my second one, and I'm embarrassed at this point, and I get ready with the gun, and I'm right at his head kind of deal, and he goes and he moves right out of the way, and this is not, and I'm a decent shot. This isn't nerves. This isn't, what is this guy doing? So now my partner goes, "Do you know how expensive this stuff is? We can't, they're going to think we're taking it. Stop shooting, stop missing." So now he loads up what's left of this thing in the dart, but now it's a stick. It's not, because now the thing got scared and ran under a bus. And I am not happy, but I have to now crawl under with this rabid raccoon and a stick and pray to God that it doesn't eat my face off, you know? So now I'm under the bus and I'm doing this, and I'm ready. And you know how like you're waiting to see something, and then all of a sudden you see it. So now I kind of move under one of the axles, and there he is. He is just looking at me, and he is wide-eyed, and I'm just as wide-eyed as he is. And I just boom, right in, and I don't know how much ketamine he put in that dart, but whatever was left, that thing just went, and I don't think he woke up. I don't think he woke up. I'm not sure that he woke up. But I got him after 2 Matrix attempts. So, but it was another great learning experience, and it was a lot of fun. And then you take the ribbing at the end. I've been talking about that Matrix raccoon since it happened in 2003 or whatever year it was. But it was a lot of fun. But the jobs were difficult. They were. Every day was a new day. Every job presented. They always said, know your job, do your job. You have to have the right tools. But what we realized and what they always taught us is that there's no right way to do these jobs. They were so dynamic and so demanding that they wanted different perspectives. They wanted different experiences, thinking outside of the box, and working together was the most important thing to get it done. So it was a phenomenal time, and it influenced my career for the rest of my career because, again, whether they made fun of it or they were happy about it, but when the captain got out of the car with 8 bags and 6 tactical bags and 2 this, and then, I'm on the fire escape leaning over on an EDP, and, they're like, Captain, get down, and screaming and yelling. And I'm like, no, I got this. So, but it helped me throughout my career. It was a fantastic experience. I recommend it. Very, very difficult, long experience, but it was great.
Yeah. So Delray 53, friend of the podcast, is asking, how many months is the training fee issue? I know Rob has spoken about it in the past, but just a quick, want to give a quick overview.
I think now it's less than when I went through. I think when I went through, it was 7 months. But I think it's less now. I'm not quite, I think they've been able to consolidate, but you were trained everything from dry suit rescue diving to high angle rope rappelling to, train rescues, ferry assault, school shootings, mass casualty incidents. You were trained in emergency medical technician. You were hazmat technicians. And then if you went to WMD, which I did for a portion of time, you became hazmat specialists. So
you also psychological techs, right? Psychological.
Yes, we did. They called it EPT, emergency psychological training. So we did all of it. So we were like the jack of all trades. We had to figure out how to get whatever job done when it happened. There wasn't anybody else to call. Like somebody has to figure this out. We had to figure it out. And it was great because it really prompted a lot of outside the box thinking. It really prompted a lot of, questioning of experiences. And it showed that, doesn't matter the gender or the walk of life or, the skin color or the background or whatever, you bring so many different unique experiences as the human being you are that it lends to, if you ever read the book Crucial Conversations, everybody puts their info into this pool of knowledge, and then somebody, usually the boss or the leader, makes a decision based on that pool of knowledge. But if you don't put all your information into that pool of knowledge, you can't make the best decision. So we had guys from all walks of life. But I was the only female in physical training, which was difficult. But people ask me all the time, it's a male dominated world, must have been such a challenge. Nonsense. I worked with some of the best guys in the whole world. And if there was 1 or 2 guys that would push back, I didn't have to fight. I had an army of guys that were standing up going, you're wrong. This is why, this is this is that. Even like being on the foot post as a rookie, it was coming back. It was one of the senior guys. We got into it and he was like, nope, she threw a lot of punches. There was not, she's going to be okay. So, I worked with some of the greatest guys in the world, and they were never afraid to stand for a female in ESU.
Yeah. No,
and the E-chicks stick together too. So.
Yeah. No, listen, I've said this many times. There are plenty of females on this job, on the job, this job, like we're still on it, right? On the job that I would rather be sitting in an RMP with than a lot of the guys I sat in an RMP with. Very competent. And I guess if you brought it up now, so throughout your career, obviously, as a female in a male-dominated profession, what were some of the obstacles or challenges that you were faced with that I know you overcame? But as a female, you like I said, you're the first female we have on the executive perspective. So not only do you have the executive perspective as a retired inspector, you also have you're the first one to give us the opportunity to give us a female's perspective as an officer on the NYPD. So if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the challenges are sometimes you get judged, prior to anybody even meeting you. That is a challenge. Now, the harder you work and the more experience that you get, your reputation precedes you a lot of times,
right?
But not always. Not always. So, I never went into it where I have to prove myself mentality, but I always wanted to be good. So I wanted anybody who worked with me, whether it was male or female, I wanted anybody who worked with me to feel confident that I had their back, that I knew what I was doing, and that I was able to defend myself, them, and those who cannot defend themselves. And I worked at that. And, a lot of times the reputation preceded me, and I had guys that were going to bat and defending me. But with each new challenge, with each new command, it doesn't take long for an opportunity to arise where you inadvertently are proving yourself again.
Yeah.
So, to beat these challenges you keep your head down, you keep your mouth shut, and you work. And you let your work speak for itself. And then once your work speaks for itself, well, then you can open your mouth a little, But until then, you let your work speak for itself. You put in your dues. I remember you weren't allowed to say. You had to keep your mouth shut for a year in emergency. So I at one point the year comes and goes, right? And I come out to the common area where the kitchen is, and in the back of my memo book, May 3rd, F you. May 15th, you said this is how I wanted to respond. I think I lost my AirPod. Hold on one second. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it fell out. So it was as
Live
jokingly
show.
as possible. Yeah. As jokingly as possible, I was like, so May 13th, you said this. I wanted to respond this. I had to shut up, but this was my response. So you make the best of it.
But that's not as a female. That's just as any rookie.
No, any rookie in ESU.
Right.
You shut up for a year, But again, the challenge is it doesn't take long in any new command to be offered the opportunity to prove yourself. It's not like you have to go looking for it. But my big thing is, the biggest challenge was being prejudged, But again, it doesn't last long when you put the work in. And my biggest thing was my love for my guys, my guys and girls. And you work differently for a commander who has your back. You feel it. Yeah. When they are not asking you to do something that they wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do.
I think that starts. You don't even have to be the commander.
No.
We talk about this often. Also, the difference between a supervisor and a leader. Mm-hmm. Right? You're a supervisor by virtue of your rank.
Yep.
Being a leader is another level, and you were a leader, obviously, by the way that you handled yourself. So, I don't even have to ask you what your advice would be to young females on the job or coming on the job or wanting to come on the job. Because you kind of just said
it. You're coming on for the right reasons, right? There's and that's guys and girls too. Like, I just want 20 and out of pension, and I'll go to an administrative position and do that, which is all well and good. We need the administration positions filled. We need legal. We need whatever position it is.
You're gonna ask for every seat on this job.
Yeah. No, there is, and get to that, but learn the job first.
Right.
Earn your way. understand what they're doing, because you can't even be in a position of you can, but it's harder to be in a position of leadership if you haven't walked that beat, if you haven't been afraid at night, if you haven't pulled that weapon and said, is today the day I'm going to shoot, if you haven't been in the riots where a cop next to you goes, okay, this is how we go out, let's do it. If you haven't had those experiences, it's very difficult to lead people who are having those experiences. But yeah, so my advice, never turn down training, never turn down an opportunity, say yes to the overtime, say yes to the sector car, say yes to the challenging foot post, put your heart into it, keep a stiff upper lip. Not everything is about you. Not everything is an insult. Not everything is offensive. Not everything is, make sure that you can let things roll off your back and do your job. Be good at it. Because as women, we bring a completely different mentality, different experiences, different levels of empathy, different ways to do things. So you don't succeed on this job in spite of being a woman. You succeed on this job because you're a woman. And you got to look at it like that. So that would be my advice.
All right. Very good. I guess I'll ask you this now. I was going to ask you a little bit later, but since we're talking about, being a female, and like you're saying, what females bring, I'm going to ask, again, as the first female on the show, what is your opinion on the 30 for 30 movement, which for those who aren't familiar, it's a movement where they want to have 30% of the police department to be females by the year of 2030.
Well, look, you take the job. Being a police officer is a challenging endeavor, right? And I also believe it's a calling. And a lot of times it speaks to more men than it does women. There are a lot of jobs out there that speak to women. There are a lot of jobs out there that speak more to men. It's just a fact. So I want the right women, right? So I don't believe in putting a number or a time frame on anything. We want the right women taking the job. Now, I'm all for having more women that want to, that feel called. So instead of going, oh, well, we have to have 30% by 30 no matter what, how about we, by 2030, we make sure that we have things in place that allow women, because we're different at home too. A lot of times we're the caretakers. We are raising our children. We are responsible for the home. Sometimes we're taking care of elderly parents in addition to all of that. So how about we make it easier for those women who do have families, who do have challenges, that want to be police officers, that want to rise up in the ranks? We need the mentorship. We need the ability to childcare or maybe flexible schedules, or working around, the childcare, the home care issues, and allowing more capable, competent women to join. So let's work on that. And then having the right women join is important, because just putting women in saying, okay, great, 30% is, and they don't really want to be here, or this isn't their calling. That's not what we need. We need capable, competent officers of any religion, of any skin color, of any gender, that are taking this job for the right reasons, that are applying the knowledge that they have, that have the empathy to serve the public, and to be able to have the backs of their fellow law enforcement, to be able to uphold the law. And when you put the wrong people, I'm a round peg, round hole person. When you put the wrong people in the wrong spots for the wrong reasons, then bad things happen, whether it's injuries or corruption, but you don't force things. So that's a roundabout, that's a long-winded answer on the third. I'm all for more women taking the job, but I'm not for let's push anybody into the job just to hit that number.
So you don't agree with lowering the standards in any way, like removing the mile-and-a-half run because too many females were dropping out? Never.
First of all, women most times are better runners than men. Okay, so I mean, I can say that you can. So I always went in wanting to hit the equal standards, but there are also things that you have to recognize. You can have a great female candidate that cannot bench press 120% of her body weight. So that may have to be a different standard. I don't think that's a lowering of the standard, but
Right.
we have to understand that we are built physically differently, and it's just a matter of science, so we are built differently. So there are different standards that can be applied. But no, I don't believe in lowering standards. We don't lower college. We don't lower experience. We don't lower just to hit certain numbers. I'm not on board with that.
All right, good. All right, let's get back to you. This is all you, right? So, and listen, it's great to get your perspective. Like I said, we're getting an executive and a female's perspective on it, because it is different. People have to acknowledge that. It doesn't make it a weaker perspective because you're a female by any means. And the fact that, you go in and, people will see how you operate. They'll see an instance that you're involved in and how you handle that situation. It lends to, the job is what you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the job make it you.
Mm-hmm. This job is 100% what you make it. There are so many avenues that you can go down. It doesn't have to be boss. It can be investigative. It can be investigative through forensics. It can be legal. We have so many. I have a friend who's overseas on the liaison program. She was one of the E-checks, and now she's over I think she's in England. But she's all over the place as one of the NYPD liaisons. This is the best job in the history of the world, and it is absolutely what you make it. You're going to get people that are misanthropic. You're going to get that 20-year or that 5-year hairbag that thinks he's got 20 years on the job. And you have to understand that everything changes. So when you're a rookie, right, some 20-year guy or gal puts their arm around you and goes, "Kid, you don't know what you're missing. The job ain't what it used to be. You came on in the wrong time," right? 20 years from now, that kid is going to put their arm around somebody else and say the exact same thing. So you know what? We change as well as the job. We grow up. 4 to 4s, which most of us did for the first maybe 5-10 years of our career, where you hit the 4 to 12 and then you go to the bar till 4 a.m. and you're at the 4 to 4s with C2 and C3, and that's what we did. But guess what? We grow up and we have families, we have responsibilities, and 4 to 4s don't happen anymore. And now we need that overtime because we're trying to make house payments. And so you change, you grow up, the job changes, society changes, everything changes. But that 20-year kid, grew up in a different world that we grew up in. And then 20 years from now, they grew up in a different world. So they don't see it as incredibly different. So don't let somebody's experience dictate how you're going to enjoy this job. It's ringside seats to the greatest show on earth, and you walk through the door and you've got 40,000 brothers and sisters, most of whom would put their lives on the line for you. And that's pretty cool,
Yeah. I think we're going to get into it a little bit later. But the job isn't the same. I know you say, listen, there's always an evolution, and it's cyclical and everything else, but there are a lot of things that, and I want to save this for after, when we get into your post-career, but there are a lot of things that are different on the job that cops are facing now that we didn't face. And it's actually, like I said, we're going to get into it because it's pretty much the reason you left the job. And so we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
And you're right. It's very challenging, but the heart of a cop stays the same.
Yeah, it should. Yeah.
Right. And the heart, and we're the meat eaters, the ones that do the job, the ones that the heart of a cop. So what I'm talking about wasn't necessarily societal, and more, what happens at you as a cop, you and your brethren, your fellow C3, your fellow C2, that's more what I'm talking about. But you're right. Society, it's become more challenging for our officers nowadays. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So let's get back to you.
Okay.
So you're in emergency services. In emergency, you get promoted.
I did. I got promoted to detective, and then I passed the sergeant's exam, and I was promoted to.
Perfect timing that you got promoted too. When I looked at your time frame.
Perfect timing. It was
People that don't understand.
But it was funny. It was funny because, you know, going back to my father that we discussed in the beginning, I was on the sergeant's list, right? And I'm trying to get the time frame, but I was going to be killed off that first list, and
that's another thing people don't understand that used to happen.
Yeah, I was going to get killed off that first list, but I was waiting. Let's say it was, I don't know, 400 names or 500 names away, and the promotion comes down for detective that, you know, you earn through emergency service. And do you remember not the rant? It was the other one. They used to have the websites the cops would bitch. Remember the rant?
It was the rant. I was very popular on it.
No, the rant, and there was another one, but I think it was the other one. It was the Examex. It was Examex, I think. That was all the rumor mills or whatever. But one of the posts was, "That's it, nail in the coffin. Espo's daughter just skipped 500 names, and now she's getting promoted tomorrow to sergeant." It was detective. So, you know, you had to read the orders, you know. Yes, so I was promoted to detective, and then I passed the sergeant's exam, and then I was promoted to sergeant. I went to the 4-4 in the South Bronx. Great house.
So you finally got up there.
I got to the 4-4.
You made sergeant, and you finally got up into the Bronx.
Well, remember, he was out of my career at that point.
That's right.
My decisions were my decisions.
That's great.
So, yeah, that's a lot on a parent's shoulders if that ever happens. So, yeah, I went to the 4-4 and, you know, played in the South Bronx for a few years. We had a good time. I learned a lot. Some of the greatest cops. I mean, busy house. I worked for some phenomenal commanders there. Jimmy Essig for a few years. I had Dermot Shea for a year and a half, I think, before I left. And, you know, love them or hate them, but they were great commanders. And I remember Shea, because I know, you know, once you get to the police commissioner, there's going to be a lot of people that either love you or hate you. But I remember Shea going back at CompStat, and he was up at the podium, and he was like, "I don't know what you want from me. We have already declared martial law. Like, what else do you want?" But these were commanders that were out on the streets with us, and they were great to learn from. And, you know, again, 4-4 was a phenomenal house, and I did patrol there. I did DV there for a little bit. I did schools. Again, and schools was great because it was like a mini gang unit. It really gave me a lot of, you know, you think schools, oh my God, you took schools? What is that, an in-house position? No way. I mean, we called them 6 Mild. It was 6 Wild. They were but they were a crew, and they were wreaking havoc across the 4-4. So again, great experience. Never say no. You know, the commander said, "I need you to do the school unit." I'm thinking to myself, you meant the crime unit, right? You know, the crime unit, you said. But, you know, never say no. Yeah, boss, whatever you need. And we worked it. We had a great time.
So how did you just ran through your whole sergeant's career, but how did you find that initial transition? Because we always say, you know, obviously the hardest transition when you're going through the ranks is there's 2, I believe: cop to sergeant, and then lieutenant to captain into the executive rank.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, cop to sergeant is difficult. That wasn't my whole sergeant's career, because I actually ended up staying a sergeant and going the investigative route. But
right, that's what I was bringing it up.
Yeah, but so it's difficult to not be one of the guys. And when I was offered like the possibility of maybe staying in emergency as a sergeant, I said no, because it would be difficult for you know, I went from being, you know, you look for your senior guy, you know, what kind of decision making, right? You put your input in, but the senior guy will do the guiding. and then you come back in as a sergeant without any time left. You're just now still deferring to that senior guy. And I think you're kind of too much of one of the guys at that point to be able, you have to cut your teeth. You have to get out there. And I didn't want to stay in a place that was familiar. You got to try a new challenge, something new. But I'll tell you what I did do is, while I was in emergency, I quit smoking before I got made, because the guys in emergency knew I could be nice. But if I was coming off quitting smoking, dealing with my cops, they would be like, "Oh my God, she's a raving bitch. Like, you can't, I was like, I gotta have the smoking out of my system before I get into the sergeant's role." And it was hard. I had a lot of advice from a lot of different mentors. My old crime sergeant, Phil Fresley, was like, you got to learn, you're going to give, you want to give to all your cops, and you realize that, not all of them are going to give back to you. And then you kind of learn to pump the brakes a little bit. So I had a lot of great advice, a lot of phenomenal mentors throughout my career, which I'm very thankful for. But I didn't have a hugely difficult transition. And, maybe part of that was because I came from emergency.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I think part of that was when I came in, some of the cops were like, "Well, I want to go to emergency," and fast friends like, well, how would you do this and how would you do that? And so maybe that eased the transition a little bit, but I think a lot of it was, again, the fact that just the work ethic and putting it in and doing whatever needed, and then understanding that my job was to protect my cops. Let them do their job. And I'm responsible for, my officers, and they can only succeed if I make sure that I'm shielding them from above and giving them what they need to do their jobs the right way. And that I'm making sure that I'm dealing with my cops before it gets to above, and making sure that they're doing the right thing. That's part of my job, is to make sure that they're not getting into trouble. So I think emergency may have helped with that transition, now that we're speaking of it. But it is a difficult, you're turning around looking for the senior guy or the sergeant to make the decision.
Yeah.
Which, again, to your point, was the same when I was it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm the XO of the 7-7, and I'm like, holy crap, I got to make this is on me, So there are definite milestones and transitions in the career, and that's one of them.
I think you said it earlier, that emergency really molded your career from that point forward, and a lot of it has to do with, like you said, on emergency. When you're there, you're taking control of the scene, even though you're a police officer or a detective. And we talk about that on the show too. Rob and I both have been kicked off the floor by an emergency services cop, who's dealing with a door and a perp inside the door or whatever. Like, Inspector, I need you off the floor,
Yep.
Okay. I tell the story. He's retired long enough, I could say, Eddie Bogdanowicz was in Truck 6, and I had the duty in Brooklyn North. And it was at that one point where emergency had to get the authorization of a captain or above to take a door, even on exigent circumstances. And one time I showed up at a job, and as I'm getting out of the RMP, he's like, "It's Lason, go, take the door." Because he knew that I was going to respect their decision and their opinion of the situation and the need to take the door, because they're not cowboys. People don't realize that the emergency services are very professional police officers.
They know when to go.
Right. They know when they can go, and they know when to stand back and talk through the door.
Absolutely.
And so
I was a sergeant in the 4-4. The commander comes out and he's like, "I'm not using your boys ever again." They just wouldn't go in, because that was that time where you needed the 3-star chief to go in. And the guys, they didn't want that. I mean, but it did shape different jobs on the career. I remember being, at one point when I was a commander or even a duty captain, you needed the chief. And in Brooklyn North, a lot of times they would say, "No, wait for the chief." And so I would always call, and I'm on scene, and the chief would be like, "Oh, you're going in, aren't you? I'm on my way. Don't you take that door. Like, don't you?" So, and there was a time we were in one of the developments and I showed up, and, you know, it changes so much over the years that, like, everybody on the stack, I didn't know. I knew one guy knew me, one, you know, everybody else on the stack were rookie or new officers in ESU. So I get up there and the duty captain is here, right? So the guy in the back is not saying anything, right? He's just letting these cops do, you know, I just step back a little bit. I'm like, well, you're tying off the door, right? Well, just step back a little bit. We're just, right. And I'm smiling at the other guy, and they're treating me like, you know, we got this. And so the guy looks at me and he's just laughing. And I'm like, guys, I smell gas. You know, I think we got to go in. And the rookie ESU cop looks at the senior cop, and the senior cop goes like this: she's ESU. And the cop is like, oh my God. And the chief is like, don't go in. And I'm like, go in, let's get in this door, you know? But we had fun.
That comes to also, you know, leadership, and a leader doing what needs to get done and not being afraid to take responsibility for the decisions that they make, instead of waiting for the next one up and waiting for someone else because you want to pass the buck of responsibility. Yeah.
And there were times I got in trouble. But we knew when we needed to go in. We knew. Yeah. And it's instinctual. It's not, and indecision is a decision, and your cops see that. It's you have to be prepared. Look, there are times you have to fall on the sword. All right, I screwed up, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. But what I did was never for nefarious reasons. It was the right reasons. I had the right information. I was making the best judgment call that I could make at the time. And I always had to worry that not only, like, sometimes when you wait too long, you're risking your cops. Yeah. You know, the element of surprise is necessary. And when I'm listening to the guy on the door, after he's taken the peephole, I'm listening to what he sees, what he's saying. And I tell you, more often than not, those who outranked me trusted in my decision making. Right. You know, so show me on scene, and they weren't coming. You know what I mean? And they trusted that not only would I make the right decision, but I would protect them too. You know, that it wasn't, I'm not making decisions to make anybody look bad. And at the end of the day, I don't want anybody hurt. Most importantly, my cops. So, but it was fun.
Yeah. The John Latanzio must have heard, his ears must have been ringing. Heard us talking about him before. He's saying,
hey, John.
So, how you doing, John, brother? We were talking about you a little earlier. Rick Gundaka was in the comments a little earlier also. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So go ahead. So, fast forward. So you did your patrol. You did schools. You did some DV, and then you had an opportunity to move on to the squad.
Yeah. So I went to the FBI Academy in between there. At the end of my 4-4 career, I was accepted into the FBI National Academy, and I did that in Quantico for a while. And that, again, was a phenomenal learning experience. But it was also such a great network. I met such an amazing amount of people that came from, not only nationally, but international students that came to study. And it was different level of leadership, dealing with the media. But what it did was it removed so much red tape that when I came back, yes, I'd actually applied to, and I was taken to the squad. I was transferred to the first squad I worked was the 7th. I was the whip in the 7th squad. And I eventually became the commanding officer of the 7th squad after the lieutenant left. And after I also was Midtown North squad and the 9th squad throughout my investigative career. I worked with some of the greatest detectives in the world. They were so passionate. They were so in tune to what needed to be done. So their ability to get in the box, to get a perp in the box, and to be able to do what they had to do to get a confession and to make sure that that justice was served for our victims. But the FBI Academy removed a lot of red tape. There was an incident in Lower Manhattan where there was a shooting outside of a club. And the information that we were getting was that the shooter went to Maryland to his grandmother's house. Well, I called the captain of the state police in Maryland, Hey, Chris, what's up? You know, it's Espo, blah, 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 blah. Do me a favor. This is what's happening. She's like, don't worry about it. I got an off-duty cop sitting on his house. We'll grab him. You know, what that would take to do through channels, it removed a lot of it. So I did that and then came into the squads. And again, I told one of my detectives, I saw him in the box with a perp. And it was after a very too long of an investigation to get this rapist and murderer off the street. And he had him in the box, and I saw him put his hand on his leg, the perp's leg, and like with such empathy and such like understanding, like I know why you did it. Like I know, like just you want to come clean. And he got a full confession. He walked out of that box. I said, I don't trust you. I'm not talking to you. I don't know how you did that. That was ridiculous. But the best feeling in the world was after that confession was written, and I was the commander of that squad. He came in and he offered me the pen that it was written with. I still have that pen to this day because that was the gift to the CEO after the murder confession. And it was, oh, what a feeling. But I tell you, the detectives that we have, bar none, I had the level of heart that went into it. I had detectives volunteering, they showing up on their own time to work this case because they capped. They were doing everything they could because it just bothered them. I had DV detectives in my office tearing up saying, I failed this victim. I didn't get to him fast enough before he gave her $180. It just, some of the most heartfelt investigations. And I was just lucky to be a part of it. And they a lot of times just put me off to the side. You know, when I was first there, I was so excited that, you know, there was whatever case came in and I'm sliding out of my office going, dun, 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 let's go, let's go, you know. They're like, easy kids, sit down, you know.
Did they put you back with McGruff?
They put me back with McGruff. That was me. Again, I look, Jesus, God. I have a lot more wrinkles now. But yes, that was me in the 4-4 with McGruff. But yeah, we just, they did their jobs. They knew their jobs. They were good at their jobs, and they approached everything with heart and compassion and strength. And it just, I was awestruck by them a lot. I really was. I keep thinking I'm losing you.
No, somebody just sent me a picture of you. No, I'll put it up. Yeah.
You'll put it up. Just send it to me first.
No. I would never do that. I would. I'll add it to my file. But yeah, so I actually have you were with McGruff, and then I have another one of you. You know what it is? You sent me a bunch of pictures, and it was tough to.
Yeah, I couldn't see it. Whatever I had on my phone, I sent.
It was tough to put them in like a time order, you know. But
that now I'm a detective sergeant. Now I'm a.
I see the DB collar brands.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Oh, I do know what that was. That may have been Sandy. That we were out working Sandy, and then I would, you know, to try to do as much in Lower Manhattan, and then I would volunteer out in, like, you know, Brooklyn and Queens after hours to try to get people's houses torn down. That was a tough time, but yeah. I think that may have been that. But yeah, that was at the K9 out of the 6th precinct. You can't pass a dog and not pet it. That's just the way it goes.
I'm a dog guy too.
Yeah,
I'm a dog guy too. Yeah. All right, listen, we're an hour and 15 minutes in already, and we have you. I told you it was going to go quick. So you know, everybody hit the like, share, subscribe. We have a lot of viewers. We have over 400 people viewing live right now on all the different platforms. We have a lot of people watching on X. We invite you over to watch us on YouTube. You can get involved in the interactive chat. You want to say hello to Allison, we'll put it up if you know her. If not, you can see the chat that's going on in YouTube that you won't be able to see if you're just watching on X. So with that, so Allison, all right, so you do that, and then your next step is?
So I was promoted to lieutenant. Again, I didn't want to stay. I wanted a new experience. So I put in for the 4-3, and I went to the 4-3 for a bit. Back to the Bronx, and I was there for a bit. And then the chief of the Bronx at the time pulled me to evidence collection, right, to be the CO of the ECT team, which is, crime scene light for the viewers that don't know. So I went through the forensics training, the latent print training, the DNA sample training. So I got all that great training. Again, never say no to training or new opportunity. And also, you don't know what you don't know. So I spent 3-4 years in the squads screaming at ECT to do their jobs, right? Not knowing what the hell their job was, right? I'm looking for a blue light. Like, bring me, I got to find the blood. Well, I got to find the blood. Let's get the blood. Get me a blue light. And they were like, what? Stop. Are you watching TV? And so I went to ECT and I learned what their job was. And you know what I found? Some of the most passionate, capable, competent, amazing cops that were just as passionate about the guy in the box that I came from, that investigative world, getting that confession, just as passionate about the DNA or the latent print hit. And it's, again, round peg, round hole. These guys were great, and I enjoyed and learned a lot from them. I didn't spend too long there before I got taken to the gang unit. Yeah, it wasn't very long, maybe a couple of years. But then I went to the gang unit in Manhattan North. And again, it was just, what a great experience. I used to get in trouble by my guys a lot because I did dumb things. Don't try this at home. Like, I would do solo car stops on the way back to the command with 5 perps in the car. And then they have to go like 3 precincts over to back me up when I'm going. I got 5 in the car stopped, and now, they're freaking out. So again, things I did as a captain, things I would never tell my cops to do that I did,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that.
But I would never, and I'd go nuts if they did it. But dumb things that I've done. But I did drive them nuts. But we did some great large scale takedowns. We took huge gangs off the street. We did one. I'll never forget it, man. These guys worked so hard, and they could sit there and listen to wire. They would interpret gang chatter back and forth. The music, the videos that they would, the gangs would put out were usually telegraphing what their next move was. And they would sit there and do hours worth of video. And we did a huge, large scale takedown. And it was just so phenomenal. Like 34 people. And these are people that are going away for, this is like RICO stuff. This is federal stuff. These people are going, there they are. These people are going away for life. 35. We're talking conspiracy charges to commit murder, conspiracy gang charges, federal narcotics charges. They're going away. So they really have nothing to lose. And the day we broke, the day we were executing all of these warrants at the same time, oh man, it was so 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, we're out there. This is my guys. And I'm on with aviation. I'm going, I forgot my signal, gang lieutenant, whatever, to aviation. You got, shake the buildings, boys, shake the buildings. And the helicopters would come down, and the developments were shaking, and people are running everywhere. The community is nuts. We're bringing perps out. And I had 2 of my detectives that were across the street, and after this kind of settled down, and I'll never forget it, they're looking into a park. And I walked over to them, and I'm half kidding, but I'm like, what the hell am I paying you guys for? What are you doing? Like, what? And they turned around. Both of them looked me square in the eyes. One of them says, real sharp, he says, boss, do you know how long it's been since children were able to play in this park? I cannot wait to see if there are children and laughter and coming from this park tomorrow morning. And that just clues you into the heart of a cop and why we do what we do and why we have the greatest in the world. And that was another phenomenal unit to work in. So
And this is the picture that was just sent to me.
Where was I then? Okay, that was a funeral.
It looks like
That
was that Minnesota's? No.
That was Minnesota's funeral. That was that torrential downpour. But yeah, that was another tragedy. I mean, yeah. Wow. Look at that. Some great guys. I love it. I'm telling you, it's the best job. We work with the best people. I miss it every single day. Every single day.
You miss the people. You miss the culture, but not the bullshit.
You know what? I could do with some of the bullshit, you know? I went into another world where I tell you, sometimes it's grimy, you know? But I know even with the bullshit, I loved the job. I loved the people I worked with. And I don't know. I get it today. It's challenging, and it's getting more and more challenging as days are going by. I do understand that. I'm not closed-minded to that, and I really I know they're doing the best they can with what they have, and I give them a lot of credit. But again, I go back to the heart of a cop doesn't change, and our meat eaters are gonna do this job no matter what bullshit that gets thrown at us, and I love them for it.
Yeah. So you have that going on, and then you go from gang.
From gang, I'm promoted to captain. Mm-hmm.
Captain.
And again, I put in for Brooklyn North, and I got the 7-7. So I was the XO of the 7-7. Yeah, just great times, you know. And then from then I was transferred to the 7-3 Brownsville. Just a lot of that was Mr. Caldwell. He was a community council president of the 7-7. We lost him a few years after that picture. What a great guy, though. Very, very supportive, very receptive, very understood the challenges that we have as police officers, but also understood the challenges that the community faced and wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page and moving in the right direction. So he's a great guy. And that was the commanding officer at the time. Now it's Issa Abbasi. Now Issa is, he can't listen to this. You can't tell him because it's like, but he has an amazingly, you just don't, I know, because I like to give him crap. So he can't know how much I actually respect him, but he had such an incredibly analytical mind. He was phenomenal to learn from. He became a great mentor and friend. He really did well in the 7-7, and then obviously went on to revamp, law enforcement in New Jersey. And even in my post life, honestly, Issa's one of my go-to guys. If Lee and I had won and we did what we wanted to do with law enforcement, I was pulling him. He was somebody I wanted by my side. And he's like I said, nobody can show this to him. Nobody. So,
hey,
but
listen,
7-7 was great.
Listen, can't say anything, can't show a picture of Issa without saying, just he's rumored to be in, one of the people being interviewed for police commissioner. And I think we're going to get into the police commissioner and the politics of police commissioner in a little while. So we'll hold off on that. But, I agree. I knew Issa on the job. And it's funny because when he was the captain and he used to do domestic violence stack, boy, he was a prick. Listen, it is what it is, right? And I didn't really know him, but I'm like, who's this captain who's like beating up all the XOs, talking captain to captain like they're nobody and everything else. But you come to realize when you got to know him, because I got to know him a little bit later when he came with Juanita Holmes to Queens North, and I was an inspector in Queens North. So I got to know him that, he's very analytical. He's very intelligent. He's very driven. And if someone doesn't have the drive that he has a difficult time accepting that.
He doesn't understand that. Yeah, he doesn't understand it. And he wants you to be better. A lot of it comes from that place that he wants it to be better. He wants a better product. He wants a better service for the community. He wants, more capable, confident, and competent cops. And he taught a lot all the way down the line, right? It wasn't just, he's not just not mentoring his XO. I remember him working with, not community affairs, crime analysis, and to put out a product, right? A book. This is who is committing our crime. This is who we think is committing our crime. This is the time of day. This is where they are. This is who they are. This is what location they're going to be at. And I remember Lieutenant, he went on to be a great squad lieutenant, but he was a lieutenant in the 7-7. They got a phenomenal burglary guy that was hitting us so hard. And he comes up to me at the end of all of this, such a great job. And the lieutenant goes, "This is the guy in the book. It's everything he said, everything that's in the book." And I was like, he was teaching as well as that. And I learned a lot. Even, two of our guys got into a shooting. They did such a phenomenal job. But they shot a perp. They had to. The perp was killed, and even the way he dealt with them, you guys are heroes. You guys are. So it was hard not to respect the guy, even though he can come off, like you said, way too hard. But his
you can say
what?
A prick.
You could, yeah. But he
he's
can.
Not. But
he's not. It's not. It comes from a place in the heart.
And I got to know it. He's really a very nice guy.
Yep.
A very nice, very competent guy.
He wouldn't admit that, though. If you said it to him, he wouldn't admit that he was a nice guy. But he is. It comes from a good place in his heart. It just sometimes he's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So all right. So let's get off of Issa. We'll talk about him in a little while, probably. Just when we talk about, post job. So, all right. So you go there, then you go to the 7-3, right?
XO, the 7-3.
Yeah. Well, that was my second command as an XO.
That was a great command.
7-3,
a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of bad dudes. I mean,
a lot of good cops.
Phenomenal cops, different cops. And that's why I went to Brooklyn North. I knew the cops in Manhattan. I did citywide ESU, but I knew the Manhattan. I knew Manhattan North. I knew the Bronx. Again, I wanted another challenge, and I wanted to learn a different perspective. Brooklyn cops see things differently. And that's what I did. So the 7-7, phenomenal time. 7-3, great cops. A lot of hard work went in there. I worked with, I don't know if I'm sure you know her, but before she became the first female commander of the 7-5 squad, she was in the 7-3 squad, Barbara Fisher. And it's funny, we don't look anything alike, but they would confuse the crazy lady in the building. And it was the one or the two of us that they were talking about. So, yeah. So, and she, phenomenal squad commander. And just, again, learned a great deal. Worked my butt off and enjoyed every second of it.
So you're working in two heavy commands there. People don't know, both the 7-7 and the 7-3, very heavy commands, and going from the 7-7 to the 7-3, that's not, again, it's not an easy lift to be the exec in either of those commands. They're similar, but they're very different.
They are very different.
But
they are very different. Yeah, a lot of work with the 7-5. But the way it got, once we broke down the silos, which when you and I came on the job, everybody was, I have this information, it's mine and mine alone, and I will act on it. And but once we broke down the silos and realized that information is only helpful if everybody has it, you realize that, like, all of Brooklyn North was connected. The gang violence was all connected. So whether I was working out of the 7-5 or the 8-4, they were traveling. They were everything was motivated, or what's the other one now? See, I'm forgetting. Gang motivated, gang initiated. No, gang. There's two. One is motivated. The other is
related.
Yes, related. Okay. So it's either gang related or gang motivated, but either way, that was the gangs were the crux of our problems. I can't believe I forgot that. See, it happens. You get old, you're away from the job. I don't speak in CompStat jargon anymore. It's just, it's a different world. But again, it was a lot of work, a lot of great work by great cops and great detectives. I was always in awe of our cops. They were just.
Tell us about this.
I did a bad thing. that was she saved her own life. Yeah. Okay. So that low life piece of garbage dragged a young girl who was on break in college into his van to rape her. And again, it goes back to, like, you have to do the job. You have to do the job. You cannot wait for permission to do the job. Not that I'm giving you cops out there permission to do all the things that I've done, but there are times where you just have to do the job. This guy, this poor young lady is coming home for, I think it was, I'm forgetting the date. No, it was warmer. So maybe it was spring break. And she's home, and this is supposed to be a wonderful time in your life, right? You're home, you're with your family, whatever. He drags her into his van. She did everything. I was in awe of this young lady. And it was my responsibility to go after this guy. She fights with everything she has in her. And finally gets out of that van, and he gets afraid. And he takes off. We show up. And one of my sergeants, I'm there with my special projects lieutenant, who she was fantastic and colorful and amazing. And if we were going to go do something, we were going to get in trouble together, right? So, but I had a special ops and a special projects there, and they both were like, they're phenomenal. So one of my sergeants says, "Hey boss, her phone is in the car." And I said, "What do you mean the phone is in the car? Can we track it?" And he said, I have it. And we jumped into my unmarked car, and we ended up going through 5 boroughs in a pursuit where I had aviation up, and I was being passed from precinct to precinct, and I was trying in rush hour, and we ended up out of the city in Westchester. That we were tracing this guy. And I had Westchester cops meeting us at the state line for escorts. We were going through everything we could, and we finally triangulated the area. What we didn't have, we didn't have enough to get where he was, because he had gotten out of the car at that point or whatever. But we had gotten enough to get special victims over there where they could do their investigation, where we got them to. And the next morning, they knocked on his door. He opened up the door. He goes, "I know why you're here." And got the son of a bitch. So, but it was a pursuit in rush hour, lights and sirens, and nobody was calling it off because I wasn't calling it off, and we had aviation involved, and it was a necessary pursuit. I didn't know if he was going to hurt someone else. And, you have to do your job. You can't be afraid to do your job. And if I had to pay a price for that, whether I got transferred or in trouble, I would have taken that one on the chin, because we want to pick up.
Black Ninja 9653 says there are times when you have to let the dog off the leash.
Yeah, well, I have been called a dog before. But yeah, we have to do our job. We have to do our job. So it's that was a great outcome. But that wasn't us, heroes of the day there. Not even a little bit. That was her. I mean, she fought. He was tying her wrist. She got a wrench that was in the truck. She was an amazing young lady. And I know that she went through a hell of a lot of trauma with that, but I have everything in me knows that she's going to go far in life. That's a fighter.
Great. So, but job wasn't pissed at you, right? So
no. In fact, I don't think many people even knew about it. Even when
because
it
had a positive impact. It had
yeah,
a positive outcome.
Well,
Had a positive
no,
outcome,
nothing negative happened. Right.
Right.
Nothing. We didn't. No, right. But we weren't ridiculous either. We weren't going to kill somebody on a pursuit.
Right.
We weren't going 100 miles an hour. We were just pursuing the vehicle, and it was under an inspector's, leadership, one who was going to pursue this vehicle. So you're right. There was no negative outcome, but it wasn't like, even after the news article, it was more focused on the victim. It wasn't like there wasn't even attaboys for the sergeant or the lieutenant that was involved. It was just, we just did our job.
So where do you go from the 7-3?
7-3. After that, I was commander of PSA 3. That was a few years during the COVID, during the summer of mostly peaceful protests. That was the time frame that I was the commanding officer of PSA 3.
So again, going through your pictures, I had to guesstimate when you were at PSA 3 here, because none of the pictures you sent me were titled. So
I didn't know. Send some pictures. I sent some pictures.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think I'm doing all right. But yeah, so tell us about your time. Is this you in PSA 3?
No, I'm a lieutenant there. I'm in ECT,
you know what? I didn't even realize the shield. There you go.
Yeah, no, I don't know. They got me egg chairs for my office. They thought it was funny, so I moved the executive chairs out of the office because we took over. I forgot what building we took over, but it was not in good shape. I mean, we were lucky.
Well, that's why I thought it was PSA 3. Actually, PSA 3 wasn't a horrible building, so
it could have been better. It was kept rumored that we were going to get.
It's a standalone, so
yeah.
It's not horrible.
So,
all right.
But yeah, that was the PSA 3 was. So I had never worked in housing. I didn't know housing. I didn't understand the dynamics of housing, and housing is a hell of a beast. So like you got 7 precincts, 7 different commanding officers you have to work with. You have, you have how many housing developments in each command, and is it on your property? Is it off your property? Are you coordinating properly? Did you remember, even when I was first a commander, I was up with the commander of, I think he was a 7-9 at the time. And I was relatively new for CompStat, and they threw out an address, and I wasn't even sure if it was on my side of the street or his side of the street. So I was like, it was a lot, not just data wise to maintain, but you had a whole bunch of different types of commands, right? The 8-4 and the 7-9 are very, very different commands. It was a heavy lift, but very challenging. Great cops, passionate cops, great community affairs cops, and you know what? Great community. I just, even the house, that's 7. I'm in the 7-7 at that point. Yeah. But even the housing community, they were fantastic. They were supportive. They wanted their cops there during COVID. That was the Lou and Ramos backpack giveaway. But yeah, and I always marked myself a member of the community that I served, because I spent more time at work than I ever did at home. So, I was part of the community. I was with you guys. Yeah, it was great.
It's one thing people don't realize about housing, and is really how each development is its own community.
Absolutely.
And it's very dynamic, and people don't realize that it's not just a bunch of shitheads, and it's not just crime and dirty and grime, that these are really good people that are living in public housing that have to deal with some unfortunate circumstances at times.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. And, we have some housing officers in the chat, former housing officers as well. The police usually have a very good relationship with the majority of the communities.
Yeah, don't believe what you read, what the media tells you. I mean, we are part of the community. The community affairs and housing, they were fantastic. They were on top of everything. They were ahead of anything I needed to know, they knew, and they were
Was it
7-7.
PSA 3?
7-7.
Back to 7-7 again?
Back to the 7-7.
All right.
Now, can't you see all the pictures of the helicopters and stuff on the wall? That's Issa's desk. He's the aviation guy.
Okay. All right. Again, I
but
haven't
those great guys. That was the 7-7. But yeah, the PSA 3. Actually, the PSA 3 pictures were with me with the kids. The PSA 3 was great, and PSA 3, I was the commander there during COVID and during the riots. So it was an incredibly challenging and rewarding time. Yep, that's my head right there, right to the right of the left fist. Very, very challenging times. In fact, I don't know if I sent you the pictures, but during those riots, we got incendiary devices. There's me. I look like a little bug in my helmet over there with the white shirt. But yeah, they were throwing bricks at us. They were throwing, that media captured that photo. So between COVID and the riots, it was an incredibly challenging time to be a commander. Very rewarding.
But Allison was still Allison.
I don't think I sent that picture. I'm not sure that I sent that picture. But that guy was about to throw a brick at a cop. So yeah, that picture was captured. Right.
I got a couple of you in action that I have a couple. I have another one of you after the job.
That wasn't me.
No. I'm not.
So
I'm going to identify the right haymaker was you, but we'll talk about that later.
I don't know about that. You can take the girl out of the cop. You can't take the cop out of the girl. Maybe, I don't know. No matter what you do, you're still a cop. So, but yeah. So it was a challenging but incredibly rewarding time, and one of the guys that I was working with at the end of the 72 hours, the first 72 hours, where it was really charge and retreat, Braveheart stuff. And I had my a kitchen cabinet thrown off a roof of a thing that hit me square in the head. My hand exploded. I had, there was fire all over the place. We were getting hit with stuff. One of my cops that was with me that night, it later came to find out, he said to somebody else she earned her stars that night. And when cops say that kind of stuff, that's why we do what we do as leaders. They knew that I was going in there. It wasn't about being a cowboy. It was about, we have a job to do, and my job is to get everybody home safely, and we did, thank God. Except for me, I was the one who ended up in the hospital. But whatever.
So you finished. So you.
There goes Dad. There goes Dad. He made a cameo.
Ask the chief if he wants to do an interview. Join in.
It's okay, Pop.
But in PSA 3, people say you earned your stars, but what you did earn was your oak leaf, right?
I did. I made Deputy Inspector in PSA 3. And, I was it's me, DJ, 7-7. No, that's 7-3. That's 7-3.
All right.
That's 7-3.
Again, I have to guess.
But yes, I did. I was promoted out of PSA 3. It was a fantastic feeling, but I was promoted actually before the riots. So it was during COVID. So my promotion picture, we have masks on.
Oh, yeah.
So, but you know what? It was great. It was when, COVID aside and what happened aside, the community really, really it showed how much the officers and the community work together and need each other. Because I was on conference calls with community officials and community residents and the grandmas of the community council, and they were begging, please just send the cops back out here, please. We're afraid to come out our door again because they're taking over. That's PSA 3.
I got one
There
right.
you go. That's PSA 3. Yes.
I remember the community affairs officer.
Yeah, they're both fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what such amazing. So I don't get promoted without any of these guys. They're the only reason that I was promoted or transferred or even went on in my career was because of the officers that I had the pleasure of working with and for. They worked their butts off for me. They had, like I said, I think you work differently for a commander that has your back. And these guys I felt like they would go through walls for me. So they earned my respect. And really, I'm not a success without them.
I've said the same thing about my career, is that I built my success. Like, I came on this job, I'm first generation. I didn't know anybody. I always quote Joe Fox. I've had a successful career, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that it's not always who you know, but who knows you. Mm-hmm. And so through my work, people got to know me, and I was able to move up, and people came to bat for me. Just different times, it comes into play of who knows you. And I say the same exact thing, is that my career and my success, and the thing I was the best at was building good teams and putting good teams together that are actually the ones that come together with you, help you to formulate the plans, but then are able to execute those plans. Because as executives, as the leaders, we're not the boots on the ground. We may be out there, like I was out there in the field, like with you, and you would respond to jobs, you would go out on patrol, not always sit at the desk and everything else, and be out there hands-on. But it's the day-to-day grind by these wonderful men and women of the police department that are out there and that are getting the job done. Yeah, we're the leaders. We're the ones that formulate the plans and sign the bottom of the page of what the plan is. But, those who sit there by themselves and make a plan are never going to be successful. No, because Joe like you said earlier, I don't know the book you mentioned, but, if you're not putting all that information together and to come up and formulate the proper plan, you're not going to have a good plan. And if you don't continuously evaluate, reevaluate, and readjust that plan, it's not going to be successful. And you can't do it without the men and women being willing to go out and actually execute the plan and having the faith in you that you're giving them direction to do something that's the right thing to do. And I always also said that it's very important to let them know why they're doing it. Don't just tell them, go do this. Mm-hmm. You have to include them. And you have to let them understand, this is why we're doing it. We're not doing it to get activity. We're not doing it to make calls. We're not doing it to write summonses. We're doing it to affect a positive change. And this plan is going to do that, hopefully, because this is the intelligence we have, and this is what we want to attack. Right. And I think that's great.
Joe Esposito used to call them the grunts. The grunts actually go out and do the work. He used to refer to them lovingly as the grunts. But you're right. You need the buy-in. They need to know that they're working for something. That is Espo. He was a great guy. Yeah. I remember my first time presenting at CompStat as a detective sergeant, and he's giving me a hard time, and he's doing it on purpose, and I was, not to fluster, but he's being a kind of a pain, Yeah. And at one point, because I got the first CompStat tape so that I could learn from what I did wrong and see if I said too much and how I was presenting and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, I have my hand on my hip and I'm tapping my foot at the chief of department. Like, it was just like I was, I was like angry, and I was like, "Oh, I can't do that," And he was,
you know what? Sometimes.
Yeah. So, but it was. He used to call them the grunts. Great guy, great leader. He, he had to get a job done. You had to do it the right way. And they had a different soul back then. I like, you and I spoke yesterday. It was a different, I was fortunate to grow up not only in my generation of policing, but in their generation of policing.
Yeah.
The generation where they were friends. It wasn't about, yes, they wanted the next promotion, but it wasn't about, they weren't backbiting or undercutting or, and even if they outranked each other. I remember my father did something stupid. I don't know what he did. I kind of know what he did, but I'm not going to say it. But anyway, he did something stupid and he got called into Espo's office and he got yelled at. And it was up one side and down the other. And at the end of the conversation, it was, all right, Mike, we good? Yeah, Chief, we're good. And then they had a cigar and a scotch,
Sure.
and it was done, and it wasn't, I'm going to get you with the next CompStat. It wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
So I grew up watching a generation of police with the soul, and they were friends first. And it was such a great thing. And that's why I was so incredibly blessed to have grown up in my career. I still go out to holiday dinner with my crime team from 1901. It was like 400 years ago and we're still close. The people that I'm off the job, I'm still close with the people from Midtown South. I'm still close to the people from ESU, and then all the way up and through the ranks and they've been supportive of my endeavors. And they're always rooting me on, and it's again, goes back to this job being so unique and the heart of a cop being so amazing.
Yeah. Does the Easter Bunny still come to visit you?
The Easter Bunny does come to visit me. That's actually Issa in there. No, I'm kidding. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not.
I'm going to cut that piece and send it to him.
But no, yes, the Easter Bunny still comes to visit. I needed that picture. I didn't take pictures as a cop. I didn't have many in emergency. We didn't have the phones.
No, that's exactly the truth.
World.
I have a few pictures that I've had through the years that I now digitalized, right? That were, in the CVS thing that you used to
pick up. Or I even had Polaroids.
A Polaroid, right?
Yeah.
A roll of film that you dropped off or you mailed away because it was cheaper to make the film. And then you come across a box of photos and now you're scanning them onto the computer because now everybody's got these things and you live in a digital age, which is problematic at times because, cops can't stay away from it. They've grown up in a different age as us with technology and everything else. But yeah, we didn't even have I didn't even have cell phone when I was a cop,
And if it was a flip phone.
It was
a flip phone. It was the
it wasn't even when I got on in '93. Oh, the Nextels.
Nextels, yes. That's it.
I got on before that. I got on in '93, and the phones were just coming out, and they were this bulky thing, and they were like it was 40 cents a minute plus like $30 a month. We were making nothing, so it was really expensive.
Now
they
didn't have cameras.
No cameras. Now this iPhone's got a better camera than any camera I've ever bought in my life.
Agreed. So I wish I had pictures as a cop. I have a few here and there.
I agree.
But they're not the same. So I do have pictures later in my career, and funnily enough, most of those pictures are because of social media too. You want to let the community know what your precinct cops are up to. So there was always somebody around with a camera. Hey, boss, take a picture here. Take a picture there.
Right.
But I'm thankful for that because I do have some pictures now. Of course, I look much older than the little kid in Daddy's helmet. That was some picture. My God. But again, amazing career. Loved every second of it. Even the challenges were fantastic to navigate with the great group of people that we were with. I got accused in housing. I tell you, just the level of what my cops, how fantastic they were. My first CompStat, like PSA 3 was definitely challenging. And I don't, if you remember the first CompStat, but
I remember.
Yeah, at the end of the first CompStat that I did as PSA 3, we had the answers, and I was so new. I was within a month. It wasn't because of me. It was because of my team. that they accused me of having a mole, of having the answers to the CompStat. But let me tell you what my team did, what we did. Now, I had my sergeant, my special ops lieutenant, I had my special projects lieutenant. My special ops lieutenant is laying on the ground. There's a big whiteboard, right? And he is marking off the lines while the sergeant and the special projects lieutenant is reading. They're going through the computer, and we're trying to fit pieces like, can this be related to this? Can this be related to that? We're in other commands. They're running everything you can. The special projects lieutenant was flying out on vacation the next morning, the CompStat morning, and still worked through the night to make sure that we were as prepared as possible. And then almost went directly to the airport to get to that CompStat. We had a whiteboard that was set up that was link analysis that we did, that my team did and worked on for days to try to put everything and pinpoint everything together. I still have a photo of that. It was up in my office in PSA 3 right up until the day that I left. But it was so good, they did such a great job connecting the dots that the dais thought that we cheated, which is a compliment, but they never believed that I didn't.
Who was the chief of department at the time?
Monahan.
The funny thing about Terry Monahan was he got mad and shut down anybody getting any heads up after your CompStat. It was after your CompStat.
He threw housing out of the meetings.
Right. He did. You're right.
He did. I remember Chief. Oh my God, the chief of housing. Jimmy begins with an S. Secreto. Yeah, he was like, they throw us out the meeting. He thinks that I told you everything of that, and I.
Right, I remember. I was a housing borough commander in the Bronx, Queens at the time, and I remember being with Secreto and him saying, he goes, "This is ridiculous. I have to go to the police commissioner." He goes, "This is ridiculous. We're not even invited to the pre-meeting anymore." Right. Because they thought that. But meanwhile, the whole script, because people don't understand there's an actual script for CompStat that they kind of go through from their pre-meeting, does leak out. It does leak out. There's always phone calls that come out of there.
Sometimes, but it's not the script that leaks out. Sometimes you get a phone call like, "Hey, take a look at this case," or "Take a look at this 61." 100%. Like sometimes you get that, but the script, I've seen it.
I've seen it. And when Terry Monahan was the XO in Queens North, he was the king of all getting the heads up. That's the funniest thing. We would be there Wednesday night, and we used to hate doing a borough CompStat Wednesday night because you got to be up early and you got your own final things to do while you're preparing. But he would always get that phone call, so we would know where to dig, so we're not wasting our time. So it was worth it. Right. So when he went up there, and he was Jimmy O'Neill's CO of his office when he was up there, I said to him, and that's the only place I ever worked with Monahan. People think I was a Monahan guy because Monahan did look out for me when he was up there. Right. And so he was now the CO of the chief department's office. I told him, I says, "Listen, chief, you were the king of getting the heads up. You better be the king of giving the heads up now that you're up there." And you know what? As funny as it is, I used to get the phone call. Like the chief would say, "Ron, did Monahan call you?" Like he wouldn't even, like he'd call me and say,
"Really? That's funny.
Tell that one that." Yeah, it happened. But it's, again, there's nothing you could do about it. It's not like they're giving you the answer. It's like, listen, this is what we're looking at. So have the answer. And if you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer.
Right.
And sometimes you actually got told, people don't understand this too. Sometimes you actually got told, "Listen, this is going to come up, and you're just going to take the hit for it. Don't have an answer." Because there's no way you would know about it otherwise, because you dropped the ball. So don't try to make an excuse. Just take the hit. And sometimes you have to do that. You just have to do that. But getting that heads up is not getting the answers to the test, because you're the only one that has the answers, because you're the only one that can tell them what you were doing about whatever that particular incident or case that they were looking at, or group of people, or cluster of robberies. And if you were in the game and you had your head in the game and you lived your command, it wasn't an issue. You were going to be able to talk about it anyway.
Right.
You know, and you were always that type of commander that was able to talk, you know.
Well, my cops were out there doing great work, and it was my job to let leadership know that they're out there every day hustling for them and doing great work. That's.
So you go from PSA 3
to the 7-0.
To the big show.
That was my final stop. I didn't know it, but that was my, I was a 40 and out girl. I was never leaving this job. I wanted to be the first female chief of ESU. That was very, very much in the rumor mill, I wanted to be the PC. I'd never wanted at 40 and out. My dad did 38 years, or was in his 38th year. I wanted to beat him at every level. I wanted to do more than 38 years. I wanted to have more stars. I wanted to, it was always a competition,
So how long were you at the 7-0?
A cup of coffee. The 7-0? A cup of coffee. 8 months to 10 months. I don't think I made a year.
And then, all right, so we've gone through your career. We've gone through, obviously it's obvious what your leadership style is. And so now you're at the 7-0. You're, like you said, your career is on the rise. You don't go to the 7-0 if they don't think that you have the chops to handle a busy command. And most people that go to the 7-0 are going to get their second bump. They're going to move on to bigger and better things. So your career was on an upward trajectory because of your work and your ethics. No other reason for that. Walk us through where you're at a command for less than a year, which is not a long time to be at a command. You're really just settling in. It takes you a good 6 months to really settle into a command. And the 7-0 is a heavy lift. Like I said, I started out there as a cop. So what makes you make the decision to leave a job that you absolutely, and you can see it today, you absolutely are passionate about, that you love the work, you love the people, and you love making a difference?
It's the hardest decision I ever had to make. The reason I walked away is the same reason I joined the force. I wanted to protect our officers and those who could not protect themselves. And so I never saw it coming. It's a very long story how it began. And I'm not, I did a keynote speech not too long ago. And the title of the keynote speech was "Don't Hang Up," because when this all started, and it didn't start then, it started a couple of years prior. Because you can't just fall into that position. But it was one of my ESU guys that I worked with who I hadn't talked to for, a decade. And he calls me on a Sunday morning and he says, "Don't hang up. I got to talk to you about something." And I was like, "What the heck are you talking about? What do you want?" And he said, "The guys and I were talking, and we think that there's nobody else who could save the city but you, and we want you to run for mayor." So I hung up. And so he called back and he, laid out his plan. And I hung up the phone afterward and I'm thinking about it. And then I called one of my mentors downtown and I said, "I got to talk to you about something. Don't hang up." So I told him, I think maybe I'm going to throw my hat in and run for mayor. And he hung up. And it progressed. Didn't pan out, didn't work out, whatever. Very, very, very long story. But when I was offered the opportunity to walk away and make a difference, continue making a difference, but not only in just, so as the commander of the 7-0 or PSA 3 or any other command or even a chief, I can only affect the lives of the people in my precinct. This was an opportunity for me to make a difference statewide, potentially nationally, for me to, really be the voice in the room that has walked in the shoes of law enforcement, that can say, hey, and I sat with Kevin McCarthy and a lot of the leadership, and it was, how do we protect our officers that are doing the job that we need them to do, that society needs them to do, that we ask them to do every day, without putting undue stress, with making sure that they have the resources that they need, to making sure that they're doing the job properly, making sure that we're respecting of the people that we are even arresting, that there's a delicate balance with that. I had many a perp say, or even come to battle, protecting us in the streets, because we treated them with dignity and respect. And we understood that we're doing a job, and, sometimes so are they. But this afforded me the opportunity to potentially make a difference in the state and make sure that our law enforcement was supported, that our communities got the resources that they needed, that our schools, the schools in the city of New York got the resources they needed. Why were my teacher friends going into school, when we're spending $40,000 per student a year, and they're buying school supplies out of their own pockets? Like, what are we doing? We can be better. So I remember making the decision. It was so difficult, because it was walking away from what I loved because I loved my cops so much, because I loved my communities so much. But it was, did you ever see The Terminator, where at the end, Sarah Connor always knew what was going to happen in the future. And then when they finally made that kill, she was on like a black highway, and she didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. So I went from having an idea of where I was going to a black, dark highway. And I remember calling my dad, and I was in tears. And I said, I'm not going to beat you. I'm going to walk away. And it was so hard. I went to the police commissioner. I sat with her. I requested a meeting with the police commissioner to inform her of what I was doing before I did it. I sat with the chief of patrol. I sat with the chief of the borough. They didn't know why I was walking away. They had no idea. Nobody. It was very quick. I told them, how much I enjoyed working for them, with them. But I had the opportunity to fight for, to give a voice for those who don't have a voice. And I remember them going, "What the hell are you doing? Like, what is going on?" I walked away. And the next morning there was a press conference on the steps of 1PP, and got a text message afterward from then Police Commissioner Sewell, and she said, "Good luck, ma'am." And that was it. I walked away, and I began a journey.
Let's before you go on your journey, let's take a look at the day that you did walk away outside the 7-0 precinct, 154 Lawrence Avenue. Gotta love the parking. Somebody's mentioned the parking. I don't think there was ever an R&P or a car parked on a block that didn't have the yellow paint from the school buses from UCP across the street.
Yeah, you couldn't go to work at that time. Yep.
Yeah. So, so you had to walk out, and there was a lot of press there because you had made the announcement, and these are some of the pictures from that day. That's a picture when do I have the picture? Thought I had it. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, you get emotional about it still today. It's obvious because you care so much.
Yeah.
All right, I can't find that picture I was looking for, but you have there's the reason right there. So you hook up with Lee Zeldin, and you're going to run for lieutenant governor on the ticket with Lee Zeldin, and you can't run for political office while you're a member of the NYPD. So you had to make that very difficult decision that still sits with you today to try and do that.
And I had to forfeit I don't know, 2 years of time. I had to go back. That was a little heartbreaking too.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I'm going to play, give you a second. I'll take you off for a second to give you a second to grab a drink. But watch a little news clip that hit. And, this is the part of I don't want to call it a speech because it's not a speech. It was a farewell explanation, not a speech, because a speech is just somebody talking at people, and this wasn't a speech. This was you talking from the heart and telling people why you had to step away. So let's take a look.
Would have walked away from you. I sat here at one point and I looked at the seat that I was sitting in and the hat that I was wearing, and I realized I was sitting in the wrong seat and wearing the wrong hat to affect the type of change that the people of the city of New York and the people of the state of New York need. And you have been my heroes for almost 25 years. And now it's time for me to return the favor. I will always have your back. Under Congressman Zeldin and I, under this administration, when we take common sense to Albany, we will always have your back and back the blue. It's not just about backing the blue, it's standing up for those who cannot defend themselves. This is what you all have done your entire lives. This is why you were called to this job. Because we truly believe that those who cannot protect themselves deserve to be protected. And we will continue that. You on the streets, and God willing, me in Albany, with your best interests and the innocent people of the state of New York's best interests at heart. We will bring back public safety and law and order. We will hold criminals accountable for their actions.
Tough to watch, huh?
It is. It is. I miss it every day. Sometimes I dream about it. It's really, it's really
so
weird.
I think we all do. I think we all have those moments. You have those dreams where you still running around, still
defending yourself in CompStat, still getting called into the meetings and trying not to jump over the desk. And
but there's a lot to be said with not knowing what day of the week it is. So retirement.
Well, my dad used to say, he says it sometimes now, but he used to say every night is Friday night, every day is Saturday. So,
there you go.
So
yeah.
he's going around now.
My week revolves around, I know it's Wednesday because of this.
Right, because of this.
Because of this now. So, all right. So now it turns into this, from the uniform to the campaign trail.
Yeah. Look, it was a great journey. I don't regret it. I missed the job, but I walked away to try to make a difference. I am somebody who, I think we've made politics so far to the right and so far to the left. Most people are right in the middle. Most people government's job is to protect their number one job is to protect their people and then really get out of their lives and, let us let us be and do what we need to do to provide for our families, to make sure that our children are taken care of, that there's food on our table, gas in our car, and we're able to live the American dream. And like I said, I don't regret it. I took a shot. It opened up other doors. I did that speech entitled "Don't Hang Up," and I believe that. I don't know what's in store for me going forward. But whatever opportunities do arise, I can assure you that I won't hang up.
So why do you think, because we were all very hopeful with you and Lee, and that, pro law enforcement, I mean, we see what's happened. We'll talk about what you feel about the current state under Governor Hochul. And Mayor Mamdani, and even talk about the administration for the police department. But where do you think the campaign fell short, if it did, or why you want? I mean, listen, we all know that this is a Democratic state. It's a Democratic city. It's a Democratic state. It's very difficult for a Republican to get into office. Right. You really have to pretty much hit rock bottom for people to open up their eyes and actually get out the door, because I believe it's the majority of the reason is voter apathy. And
and I said that. I mean, I know it's a blue state, but it's really not. If you really break it down, it's a red state with blue dots. And we have forgotten, some of us have forgotten, that in the United States of America, it's not a right to vote. It's a responsibility and an obligation to vote. And, I think that some of the cops didn't even know we were running. I don't, whether it was, the PBA or the unions that were, they were very, most of the unions were very supportive and tried to push it out, but there were still cops that I would run into and they would be like, "What do you mean you retired?" Or, "No, I had no idea that this was going on." Or, "When is the election?" And it was 6 months after the election. I think that we forgot, in New York, everybody says, "Well, it's a blue state. My vote doesn't count." It really does, especially when it comes to non-presidential year or off local elections, things like that. We determine our politics and what we want our state and our cities to do. So, I mean, I don't know that it fell short. I know that every cop is, I always like to say, is +8, and our officers, we have a lot of officers nationally. Like, let's just take them all together. And every cop is at least +8. There's 8 family members and friends that are waiting for that cop to come home to hear that Velcro at the end of the night, to make sure that they're safe and that they want their fight, their best interest at heart. Because our heroes go out every day putting their lives on the lines for strangers, not knowing if the next call is going to be their last. We want to make sure that they get the training and the resources that they need to do a very, very difficult job. And I think that most people are on board with that. So, I mean, where we fell short is, a lot of times it's funding, it's getting the word out. It's maybe the opponent screaming louder or having a bigger, media presence, things like that. But at the end of the day, we as officers have to take our responsibility too. And elections matter. They matter. And you cannot just say my vote doesn't count. And I went up and down the state, and there were a whole bunch of people that were like, "Oh my God, you have to win because this is going to happen if you don't." And, then I would say, "Well, you got to get all your friends out to vote." "Oh, no, we don't vote. We don't want the government to know where we are." Like, no, you can't do that. Like that's. So it was very challenging, and it was very stressful, and it was really almost disheartening. Like, you feel defeated because, for a very long time, and I thought I had a work ethic. Lee was like, I thought he had a body double. We did everything we could up up and down the state, in and out of communities, riding the subways, talking to people. And the most disheartening thing was I would support you, but I don't vote. And I think that, again, it was challenging. It was rewarding though, too, because I really got to speak to New Yorkers from all walks of life and really hear their concerns, and what they envision for their family and their neighborhoods and their state. And I want to keep fighting for those who want me to fight for them.
And why do you think you didn't get the endorsement of the PBA?
Well, sometimes politics plays politics. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, yeah. I could hypothesize. I could, but I wouldn't be something that I would put out here because I don't know what we're thinking. I do know that sometimes politics is a very difficult game, and if you cross certain people and you're wrong, they'll destroy you. So yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to walk in anybody's shoes, and I'm certainly not going to put anybody down. No. You make decisions based on the best interest you think of your membership, and that's how they did it.
Yeah, and John and Eric talk a lot about that. They talk a lot more politics. Like I've said in the past, Rob and I, we have really no choice but to speak on some politics because it's infected the police department so much that a lot of the things that we talk about are incidents that really are, go back to the political atmosphere or laws that have changed, with the bail reform and raise the age and, just the plethora of things in local government with the diaphragm law and, the repealing of 50A and, the just on and on and on, the loss of qualified immunity in New York City. It's just, these are the things that they're dealing with. And then you look at the candidates and you wonder why aren't the police unions backing pro-police, pro-law enforcement, candidates? And even when they don't outwardly, endorse them, when you look on, the website, you can see that donations were made to certain candidates, that the membership doesn't even know about, right? So they're paying their membership dues, and then they're paying, a little bit more towards the political fund, to the PAC, and they don't know where that money's going. They're trusting that their membership is going to do that. And like you said, I understand. So all right, so they endorse you and Lee, and Hope wins, and then now she's not going to, go. But if you look, she's not signing off on pro-police legislation anyway. Right.
But again, you gotta. I'm not in their shoes.
Right. No, I get it.
You're hedging your bets.
Did they interview you and Lee?
We spoke. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we spoke. We sat down and had a conversation. Again, we had a conversation. I was very open, honest, and candid, as I usually am. But I can't play Monday morning quarterback. I'm not in their shoes. You hedge your bet on a Democrat, usually controlled state, and it's difficult because police unions are just getting into the political world. Yeah. Nassau and Suffolk County, Suffolk County especially, they're fully into it for the police unions, and our unions are getting closer. But we as cops stayed out of politics, right? I mean, we did our voting, but we stayed out of politics because we're serving both sides. I'm not asking if you're a Democrat or Republican when I'm responding to a call. So yeah. They stayed out of that political messy situation, and maybe that was the PBA's kind of, we're going to still, stay out of the potentially messy situation for our members. We're trying to get legislation. Again, this is all me just thinking. I would have loved their support. I would have appreciated it. But again, I can't come down on anybody who's trying to do what they feel is the best for their officers, their membership.
So your political aspirations didn't end there. So
yeah, but it was much the same thing. I grew up and I live in Orange County, and that was me at the border wall. But I ran for United States Congress. Again, it was much of the same thing. It was just very difficult to break into this world in a state that that leans Democratic when those come out and vote. And so it was challenging. Again, these were opportunities that presented themselves, and an opportunity for me to make a difference. And I can't say that I would not that I would turn down an opportunity to make a difference. So, it's been an interesting world. It's been an interesting change for me. I told President Trump if he wanted me to drop out and take over a security detail, I would handle that for him. So there was after the first attempt on his life. So this just shows you how divided we are. We have to as Americans stop concentrating on what separates us and concentrate on what unites us as Americans. And it's certainly not always talking about gender or skin color or religion or background or where you come from. We have to we are an amazing people, a resilient people. If you go back to September 11th, I did I sat on a panel a couple of years after September 11th with other law enforcement, not from New York City. And they were talking about how that day went for them and how awful it was and how it was for the country and everything. And then when they finally got to me, I was the only New York City cop, right? And I said, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, September 11th was one of the worst days on American soil in American history. But I will submit that it was also one of the best days, because I saw a community, a resilient spirit of Americans that put their differences aside for a while. And there was Victory Lane where, they were lining up with signs because there was nothing. They wanted to do something and they didn't know what to do. So they would just line up and say, we love you to the construction workers and the cops and the firemen and everybody who's down there, risking their lives and doing their job. Doctors from all over the states, the tri-state, they were standing outside of hospitals, waiting to treat the injured, offering their services. I've never seen resilience like that. So, yeah, I mean, you can look at it. It was a horrible, horrific day. We lost so many people. It was a terrorist attack on our soil, but look at the way that the flags that were being flown, look at the way our Americans responded. Look at the way that they united together. And it certainly wasn't, I can't hug you because you're a Democrat or a Republican. We were Americans, and I want to come back to that. Just common sense, middle of the road strategies that provide the opportunity for the American dream for our people. And that's it, man. It seems so simple.
It seems so simple. It does. It seems so simple, but it seems like we're more and more divided even now than we were in 2022. You talk about the attack on the president. You guys, during your campaign trail,
Lee was attacked.
Lee was attacked. Let's take a quick look at that.
Yeah, Lee was attacked.
Is our last stand for New York. And there's only one option.
What is he doing? What's he doing? Why did they let him get up there? Get up there. Hold on. Get Lee out of here.
See, now, well, people, if they don't remember, that gentleman that came on stage had brass knuckles with spikes on them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really see it very well, but
I'm never a fan of slow motion.
Right behind that speaker is some ex-cop who doesn't forget what it's like. And I see from this angle,
I was stretching, I think.
I see from this
They
angle, somebody taking care of business.
It seems from that angle, because you can't tell in a picture, but it looks like they had it in control over, everything was in control, and I was just, stretching out to make sure I wasn't injured.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that individual was in crisis.
Yeah.
No, and it doesn't. Again, and it's not about. It was about getting that weapon out of his hand, which it wasn't getting. Everybody was in danger at that point because they were spiked brass knuckles. They were, the jogging anti-rape knuckles. They look like the little Hello Kitty things. That is what he kind of had, which of course he got made fun of. And Lee and I were walking a parade route, and there was a kid with a Hello Kitty backpack. And I looked at the backpack, and I looked at Lee, and I went, "Too soon? Is this too soon?" So it was about getting the weapon out of his hand. He was in crisis. And again, this goes to being able to support our veterans and our law enforcement. I'm actually doing work with a tech company, NV Mind Health, that works for performance and resiliency, and helping maybe drop that suicide rate down from the veterans and the first responders. But this guy was drunk. He was in crisis. He active duty, returned from active duty. His wife left him. He was drinking, and somebody told him that Lee had a problem with veterans. And he decided to take things into his own hands. And that, again, goes to the dangerous rhetoric on both sides. We have to make sure that we're speaking responsibly. When we talk about the other side, when we talk about those who disagree with us, those who are different backgrounds, because you have people, what happens is you create a moral imperative where someone with maybe mental illness or someone who believes that it's their responsibility to take action, you prompt them into taking action. So we have responsibilities too. When we have the mic and a platform, there's a responsibility that goes along with that. Salacious and malicious allegations and blatant lies, divisive terminology, divisive word. You have to be very, very careful with all of that, and it's a responsibility that I don't take lightly.
Yeah. And listen, just that example right there leads me into my next question about what your thoughts are in the current state of politics we'll leave it in New York City. It's New York State as a whole, but New York City, because this is part of the problem. You have all of these people in the city council that have never had a real job, that don't understand what it's like to have a confrontation with someone, to be involved in a confrontation, they think it's so easy that people just walk into handcuffs. Right. And they don't understand what it takes to get people into handcuffs. And so they passed this diaphragm law. And I know you're familiar with the diaphragm law. For those who aren't that familiar, that are watching, diaphragm law in New York City says that you can't put any compression on the back, the chest, the neck to compress the diaphragm, which someone who is resisting arrest, it's next to impossible to take that person into custody without putting some type of pressure on the diaphragm. And it's a misdemeanor that a police officer can be arrested for a misdemeanor if they unintentionally, doesn't even have to be an intent, there's no intent needed in the law, put pressure onto someone's diaphragm, and you do not even need to have an injury. Now, no fan of DAs in New York City, in any of the counties really, but to their credit, no one has been charged under the statute yet. I say yet, because police work is not pretty. People don't understand how difficult it is to get somebody into custody and to control a person in order to get them into handcuffs when they don't want to get into handcuffs. And that's why you see all these videos where we look like a bunch of Keystone cops, 6, 7, 8 people on a person trying to get them into handcuffs. And they're like, what's wrong with the NYPD these days? Well, they're not allowed to lean on their shoulders, their back, their neck. They can't sit on them. They can't get control of that torso because they can't put anything on them. So between that, you have the repeal of the removal of qualified immunity, where if a cop is doing their job and something incidental happens, they are now personally liable. You have just more and more where you have anti-police rhetoric coming out of city government. You don't have the support. You've talked from the minute we opened up this conversation, Allison, 2 hours and 35 minutes ago. You didn't think you could make 2 hours. 2 hours and 35 minutes ago, from the onset, you talk about supporting the membership, giving them the support, giving them the tools to do their job. And I don't think that local government is doing that. I think that they've taken away a lot of tools, basic law enforcement tools. So, what is your...
A lot to unpack there, yeah.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot to unpack there. So I never wish for any administration to fail, right? That's like wishing the pilot of a plane to fail while you're riding in the plane, right? I never wish for an administration to fail. I want them to make an improvement, regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, right? I definitely, over the years, there have been great strides made on both sides of the aisle. That said, you need strong, capable, compassionate leadership to be able to represent the men and women of the police department like that. So you have people, whether it's in leadership or in legislative branches, the city council, whatever it is, that as you stated, have not walked a day in the officer's shoes, right? So they're making it more and more difficult to do the job. But what also has to be explained is it's not only doing a disservice to our brave men and women who are going out trying to make the difference. They're doing a disservice to a lot of members of the community. Now that includes the perpetrators. And I know you're going to think I'm nuts when I talk about this, but when you're talking about not prosecuting or not dealing with, let's say, the youth, okay? And you're going to talk about, raise the age, or the 19-year-olds now are giving the guns to the 16-year-olds, right? And I saw it in housing. I saw it in PSA 3. I saw it in the 7-0. And you're going to hold the gun because they're not going to prosecute you if you get caught with the gun. Now, this is multifold, right? So now either you get caught with the gun, right? And you're out the next day. They were telling my cops, that's it. I'll get another gun. I'm out that night. And the next day they get another gun. Then they get caught again, right? Next day they get caught again, or whatever, a week later, they get released and they go out and get another gun. Third time. Now, by the time, so they haven't dealt with a judge yet, right? So by the time they see a judge, this kid, who we may have been able to save, has 3 gun collars.
Yep.
Right? So now you're talking about, now we're going to deal with you. But we could have saved that kid at 1 if we could have scared him a little bit and said, hey, ends here. Now, I'll give you another example. If he doesn't make it to the 3rd gun arrest, because now he gets into a dispute, and guess what he has on him? He has a gun, which he wouldn't have been carrying if there were ramifications to that. And he fires that gun, and now 2 lives are destroyed. And I can talk to you about a 16-year-old in PSA 3 who's blinking answers to detectives because he's a quadriplegic because of that. So we're doing the community an incredible disservice. And now all day, I will talk to you all day about how we have to do better by a lot of underserved communities, right? And we have to do better schooling-wise. We have to do better opportunities. We have to have opportunity zones. We have to have entrepreneurship. We have to have apprenticeship. We have to, so many things we could do. But the fruits of our labor 20 years later, when you're dealing with the criminal today, our officers have to have the support to deal with the criminal today, not what happened in their lives prior that got them there. So again, I'll talk to you all day about how the criminal got there, but once they're the criminal, we have to deal with them with what's being faced. And you need leadership. You need somebody, again, to be the voice, to be able to say, look, you haven't walked in the shoes. This is why this is dangerous. This is why you're not only failing the cops, you're failing the community. And this is where the community now will step up. And I've seen it. I've seen the community step up and back up its officers, you know, when they were doing the right thing, when they were, and we can make better decisions, but you need somebody that's capable and able to speak truth and kind of push back and give leadership what they need to make informed decisions. And I think they're just woefully misinformed. And these laws that you're speaking of are dangerous. They're dangerous for our cops and they're dangerous for the community.
What do you think about Mayor Mamdani coming out since he's in office? It's 5 months now, and or not even a full 5 months. And we've had several incidences. You know, you had the snowball, just some kids throwing snowballs, right? You had the failed IED attempt outside of Gracie Mansion, where he refuses to call it the Islamic, inspired attack, and actually just go against, you know, the pro-Palestinian or the anti-Palestinian, you know, knucklehead that was there. But that's how he wants to frame it, instead of calling it what it is, and not really speaking out for days, and then still not really coming to bat for the police. Other incidences where you have the narcotics officers involved in a violent confrontation with someone who winds up being innocent, but condemning the police from his initial comments, and then again, another incident happens, and he says, you know, how concerning it is. Mm-hmm. You know, so you're condemning the police instead of just saying it's under investigation, right? And let's let the investigation play out. And if these cops are found to be in violation, then they will be dealt with, and we'll be open about it, releasing body-worn camera if there is any, whatever the case may be. Again, we'll even go back to right after he was in office, and you had that shooting here in Queens of the emotionally disturbed person, and those cops we broke down the video on the executive perspective, Rob and I, and those guys did a phenomenal job, did everything they could do, tried to de-escalate, tried to even retreat, tried to close a door to create a barrier. He gets through with the knife, and people want us to throw spitballs at people with knives, and he shoots. Thankfully, not even fatally, because he was going through crisis. Right. And then he goes and visits him and speaks about him, but doesn't talk to or about the cops and about the courageous actions of those officers. Mm-hmm. And so you have that, and that's what leadership the cops are looking at right now. Right.
Well, again, it's very difficult. It's not the only administration that's rushed to judgment.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So I think that it's important, from an investigative standpoint and from somebody with a background of that you have to wait for the facts of the case to play out before you make dangerous assumptions. But again, that's where, you know, police leadership, the people that you surround yourself with, right? Because you're not always going to deal with a cop, somebody who's walked in those shoes, somebody who's rolled around with an EDP, you know, at 2:00 in the morning, who is, I don't know why, but always naked and always covered in slime, and always, it just always seemed to be that way. But it's your responsibility to give as much information to leadership as possible, you know, so that they can make better decisions. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop, right? That's right. Nobody. And we are held to a higher standard. And I always say, if a guy screws up or a girl screws up with good intention, then we work with them, we make them better, we train them better. This is why we're doing what we're doing. If you screw up with nefarious or malicious intent, then we're going to nail you to the wall, right? And it's going to come out. Transparency has to happen because we are indebted to the public. We serve the community. They have a right to know when we mess up. But I would like to see an administration that's led by facts, that may make sure the facts of the case come out. And at the same time where you're going to call out the bad cop, you have to be able to call out the community member, the perpetrator, or the person who prompted the incident as bad. So, you know, I'm as hopeful as possible, because I am hopeful for our cops that he settles in and realizes it and gets guidance from the leadership in the NYPD. Look, I can't wish for him to fail. I can't.
No, I agree. Listen, I didn't vote for him, but listen, he's he's the mayor of the city I live in, and
Right.
I have to hope and pray that he somehow sees the light and does change. I think that he's seeing that all of his promises are not possible. That it's easy to say you're going to do all this and give all this free stuff away and everything else, and nothing is free, and so I think he's coming in to see that, and I hope that he sees through investigations and everything else. And like you said, if a cop is bad and a cop does something wrong and a cop violates everything, then they're going to be held accountable. But you know what? There's a reason why there's no indictment right now on those 2 detectives from narcotics, because they're legally justified. As ugly as it was,
it's not, resisting arrest is never going to be pretty. Okay. No. It's just not, because you can't, your intent as a cop is not to hurt the person.
Right.
It's to get them in custody. I mean, It's quite simple. If you want to hurt somebody, you take the bats and you just beat them until they stop moving. But that's not what cops do. No. Their job is to take them into custody with the least amount of force possible. Right. And when somebody is moving around and resisting and punching you, and you're trying not to punch them, you're just trying to get their hands behind their backs, but it's going to look messy because you're rolling around and you're using force. But we have to go home at the end of the day. Right. We're taking a job. We didn't call ourselves to that scene. Some behavior or some called us to that. I used to say, when I was on the street, if somebody was doing something, I would turn around and I would go, "You wanted my attention. Now you got it." And you could always hear my cops behind me go, "Uh-oh." But we didn't bring ourselves to that scene, right? And we have to make sure everybody goes home safely. Our job is never to hurt or kill anybody. In fact, I have seen officers after they've had to use deadly physical force, and they are not the same. They don't go out there looking to take a life. There have been officers that were their heads on cars crying because they had to use that kind of force. It's not our intent. And you're right. It's not going to look pretty, but we do have to go home at the end of the day. And we just need to, we absolutely need to be supporting our brave men and women that are going out and doing the job that we need them to do the right way. And like I said, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. So right. I think he needs more, he needs guidance with investigations too. He's a very young mayor,
So I'll cross that over into, piggyback over something that you said, where he needs guidance. He needs the executives to be giving him guidance and giving him the information of what's right and wrong, and what the police are supposed to do, and that it's right. It's righteous and legal what they're doing, even though it's ugly and it doesn't look good. And I get a lot of pushback, because what I say about Commissioner Tisch is that I think that she's a good police executive, but she treats, she's treating the job as a corporate job, and that's because she has not come up through the ranks of the police ranks, has never walked in those boots, has never rolled around with a perp, never tried to get anybody into handcuffs, doesn't understand the true use of force and the force continuum that we deal with and we've dealt with, and we've got our lumps. And like you said, you've gone to the hospital, and your family's gotten that phone call, and all these things that you've dealt with. So they don't understand that. They don't have that empathy for the police. So I get shade because because I do think that she has pushed back against Mondami. And listen, the police commissioner is a political appointment. Everybody knows that. So there are politics at play, right? And your job at the police, as a police commissioner, is to, just like in the command, right? The XO, it's the XO's job to accomplish the mission of the CO. Whatever the CO deems is the mission for that command, that's your job. Agree with it or not agree with it. You can push back if the CO lets you. But if the mayor's not allowing the pushback, like she's pushing back on disbanding the SRG, that's why it hasn't been completely disbanded yet, right? She pushed back and she came out and spoke about the ISIS inspired things behind, because the mayor before his first press conference was aware of the statements made by the perpetrators. So they knew it was confirmed that it was ISIS inspired. But yet he doesn't come out and say it that way, but she would. So she did push back and did go against him and rub against him that way. She did support the officers that were pelted with the snow and ice, going against. So I understand that she is limited as the police commissioner, as any police commissioner would be, that she's limited in her abilities, because I don't believe that we've had an autonomous police department, an apolitical police department. It's never going to be apolitical. However, more autonomous, where the police commissioner has been allowed to do his or her job since Bloomberg and Kelly. I don't think that the police department the police commissioner has been allowed to run the police department the way the police department needs to be run since that administration.
Well, certainly there have been prior administrations that had police commissioners that were in name only. They had a deputy mayor that was running things behind the scene to accomplish their agenda. And that is problematic, because that's the idea of being a success, right? If you're the mayor or the president or whatever your title is, you put people who know their job and do their job around you and make sure that the job gets done properly, right? You're not going to put me as, the head of education for New York City. I have no background in teaching. I have no ability I have common sense, but I don't have the experience. So by being a great leader, you want to put people that have the experience to do that job and then let them do it. Obviously, you guide them.
That's the thing.
Obviously, you guide them. Right. Obviously, you guide them. And at the end of the day, the failures are yours. The successes are theirs. That kind of mentality is what needs to happen to be a success. I go back to saying I could never be a success if I was running the day-to-day community affairs, if I was running the day-to-day data analytics, if I was running the day-to-day crime, I think I could have been okay. But anyway, anything else, I was not going to be a success if I didn't let my team do their job and I didn't trust them to do it. So that would be my advice to the mayor. If he wants to be a success, yes, obviously you guide them, but you want the people that you put in your charge, in the heads of these departments, to be able to successfully do the job and support. But again, he's the mayor. He's going to guide which way it's going to go. But you do want, even as an XO, if you're going to go for a police commissioner to a mayor, you do push back. You push back as much as you can, right?
Right.
You say and sometimes you listen to, and sometimes you're not. But you can't stop fighting for what's right, no matter who's listening or who's not listening. So look, I wish for my love is the police department.
Right.
I want them to succeed, and I want the cops to be, taking.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So, we spoke about this yesterday briefly, and I know you've heard things a little bit different than what I've heard, what other members of this network have heard about morale on the job, and the feeling that Tish really has their back. And I think that some of that sentiment comes from the fact that has come out.
I think that means a lot to the members. I think that means a lot to the members when you come out and push back. You're trying. At least you're putting your point of view out there. It's not just a one-sided conversation. Like I said, other administrations have rushed to judgment, but you don't want somebody who's not, you got to at least, you have the responsibility to your members to at least say, no, that's not how we look at it. This is how we look at it. Like at the end of the day, that's not, you're not making the final call, but this is the information that has to get out there. I think that matters to people. If you have somebody that that appears to have your back, you work for a different way,
There's another side to it too, also though, but because she's very heavy-handed with discipline, and I think my opinion and what I've said about this is that comes from once again, her corporate mentality versus coming up through the police culture and understanding and having empathy for officers, because you could put yourself in their shoes in these situations. Where an officer is corrupt, there's zero,
absolutely no tolerance,
anything, right? There's no tolerance. You got to go. But especially a use of force situation, we talk about it all the time on here. Graham v. Connor, and the fact that it has to be, from the perception of the officer, it's supposed to be looked at from the perception of the officer, as if you were someone with the same amount of training in the same situation. And she just can't do that. She cannot put herself in the officer's position. She can't look at it without the 20/20 hindsight, which is what the law says you cannot do. You can't look at it from 20/20 hindsight, and with body-worn cameras and videos and looking at things, like you said, I hate slow motion, looking at things frame by frame and all of this. That's where I feel it's problematic with Commissioner Tisch. And now, all right, listen, there's strong rumors that she may be stepping down. And I think we've all said that she's a transitional police commissioner, that Mayor Mondami kind of used her in his campaign by saying, I'm going to keep her on because he saw how she appealed to support a large part of the voter bloc. And that people
potentially, yeah. I think the police were supporting her as well.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that there's something to be said about if you're putting somebody in a top position, and this is no disrespect to her, but somebody who came up through the ranks, who understands the different positions, who's been in different places, who's served community, who's taken their lumps, both arrest situations and mistakes. They have a grander view because they can see it from the community standpoint, from the leadership standpoint, from the mayoral standpoint, but also from the police standpoint, which is important. So. And as for transitional, I don't know. There's rumors, the police department, the rumors are amazing.
Yeah.
Everything, you can't believe anything until it comes down on paper.
And that's the truth, because, big rumor. I don't have the picture. I helped out with 10 Fort Tavern last night. I did the production for Tommy Joyce and Pete Fuselli, and they had Rodney Harrison on, right? Former chief of department, Suffolk County police commissioner, right? So it's a big rumor. It was in the newspaper that him and Issa Abbasi, who you worked for in the past, and we talked about earlier, are like the front runners for the police commissioner spot, and that they've been interviewed and all this other stuff. And he was asked that specifically, and he addressed it specifically yesterday on the show. And he said that he has not interviewed for the position, and that because of his experience in Suffolk County and not having the ability to run the police department and having political interference with his job, not even be able to really select his command staff other than one person, that unless he was given the autonomy, he would not take a job. He wouldn't take the job.
Wow, that's an interesting point. And that goes to your point. It's very difficult to run your ship if somebody else is running it for you. Rodney's a good man. I worked with him as well. Yeah. He did a great job over in Suffolk. I was actually I was a cop in Midtown South with his wife, who was a lieutenant. So I've known them for many years as well. The rumors for police commissioner, you get a crime fighter in there, you get somebody who knows the job and can do the job, and I think they'll be successful. but I kind of see his point. It's hard, when you're a commanding officer of a precinct, if the chief is making every decision, and I won't say the year, I won't say the chief, but when even a commanding officer of a detective squad, when your investigation should have been 5 days to a week wrapped up, and 2 months later the chief is telling you, what do you mean it's your investigation? And I'm like, well, we haven't been able to do anything because you're being
checklist.
Checklist, and you got to interview the brothers, sisters, cousins, ex-boyfriends, girlfriends, college roommate who lives in Wyoming before we can move forward onto the next step. So when you have somebody that micromanages, makes it very, very difficult. I haven't heard many bad things about Tish. You were the one who brought up to me the discipline. I hadn't heard that. I have seen her speak out. I am a firm believer that the police commissioner role, again, no disrespect to Tish, should be a crime fighter, should be somebody who walked in those shoes. So, I hope that the mayor goes forward and puts somebody there that, that can talk to him, that can, as much as I respect what, Rodney Harrison said, what Chief Harrison said, what Commissioner Harrison has said, there's also something, as difficult as that position is, there's also something to be said of, put me in, coach, and I'm going to at least do my best to get my team together, to fight for my cops, to make sure the community is safe, to make sure that I am the go-between between the mayor and the police department, and I'm making sure that the mayor is happy as I can make him, and my police department is as successful as it can be. So I do understand that standpoint, but there's also the flip side of it. Like, somebody's got to be in that position.
Yeah.
At least let it be somebody who has the best interest of the cops at heart.
All right. Listen, we just ticked over 3 hours.
Oh, see? My dad is going to kill you.
I told you. But
I figured you'd throw me off in 15 minutes.
No, Allison, it's been a great conversation. The only negative I've gotten is somebody texted me about things I said, not you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they said I sound like an asshole. But anyway, so let's pivot. Let's pivot. We've talked about the job. We've talked about politics in the job. Let's talk about Allison. A few years back, you talked about, you've always wanted to, you were an EMT, you were a volunteer before the job, you wanted to be a surgeon and whatnot. Let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a mission you went on a few years ago to Peru.
Oh, that was such a great experience. I'm getting notification that these might die, so you got to let me know if you're not hearing me.
Your computer should pick it up if it does.
Yeah, but then you're going to hear my old man. That was a great mission. I had the opportunity to go on a medical mission to Peru for a few weeks, where we did, I want to say 20 or 30 life-altering surgeries for babies and children with the cleft lip and palate. Oh, what an experience! So it was interesting because they wanted to announce that an NYPD officer was doing it, but because that would have made it, the Peruvian terrorism and Shining Path and their organizations, they couldn't announce until we were safely back on U.S. soil because we were afraid to put the group in jeopardy. But we brought a whole bunch of NYPD gear and hats, and we handed things out. And I would have adopted every single kid that was there. A lot of times these children, yeah. Well, so these kids in some of these countries, right? They don't understand why things like this happen, right? So is it a curse? Sometimes these kids grow up in darkness. They're left alone. Imagine never experiencing the tenderness of a first kiss. and their parents then are told that these organizations, they were so afraid to have a child die in our custody because they're being told, well, you're handing your children over to butchers. And so everything is so, it's so challenging and so emotional. So when that parent hands that baby over to you, it's a fear, but it's such a large trust that their most prized possession is coming into your hands. And oh my God, I can't tell you the feeling when I would carry a child out of surgery and hand a child whose smile had been corrected, because it's not just about the physical aesthetic look. They can't get the nutrients, the cleft palate, the milk falls out. They can't get the nutrients, they'll die. And when you can hand that child back whole to the parents, there's no better feeling. And to watch the emotion, I have some videos, and to watch the emotion on some of their faces, you're handing their most prized possessions back to them. And it was great. So yeah, I'm like a frustrated trauma surgeon, and it's just any opportunity to give back and to do something like that. I would do it again. I'm much older now, so the trek to Machu Picchu and the all of that's a little bit more challenging, but what an experience. I would recommend it. It's the Smile Network International. For those of you who don't do like treks and camping, and they have other abilities to give back, and I would definitely look them up. They're one of those organizations that, I think that like the Better Business Bureau for nonprofits, if they're like 82% goes to the
wow,
cause.
That's high. Yeah.
These people are like 98%. So there's not a lot of waste there. So it's pretty amazing organization.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great.
I can't hear you. Are you muted, or did I lose my?
No, I think you lost it.
Hold on. Do you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, now I hear you. Yeah, I lost my earbuds.
Yeah. Turn it down a little bit because we're going to get a little feedback.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so that's great. So what else? What does Allison like to do? For recreation. Tell us a little about.
Yeah, I love being with family and friends. I love entertaining. I love cooking. I'm an avid golfer. I love being in nature, camping, hiking, being outdoors. We have to make the best of this life, and I got probably like 20 years left, 30 years left if I'm lucky, and I got to, make every second count, give back where I can, but enjoy family and friends, and make sure I don't take myself too seriously, and make sure that I do the best I can for those I love.
That's great. So there's 2 questions that we like to ask everybody.
Okay.
At the end of our interviews. So you take all that you know.
Which isn't much.
No, all that you know, all that you've experienced throughout your career in the NYPD, and you go back to whatever age it was that you came on. Would you come on the job again?
Without hesitation.
So now, fast forward to today, with everything that you know, everything that you've experienced, and everything that you know about policing today, would you come on today as a young 22-year-old Alison Esposito?
Without hesitation.
There you go. So it's not a lot of people say that. Unfortunately, not a lot of people.
But the cop doesn't change. Society changes. Things change. We are in this because I believe it's a calling. It's a certain type of person that can go out, and these cops are still doing the job, as challenging as it is. And we still have guys and gals raising their right hand. As challenging as it is, as scary as I have a cousin on the job. Okay, he's a rookie cop, less than 5 years, and he's doing the job, and I'm proud of him because he raised his right hand, because he, even under this scrutiny and challenges, and he still wants to be a cop. So yeah, I mean, without hesitation, I think the heart of a cop will always be the heart of a cop.
All right. Listen, Allison, we're 3 hours and 9 minutes in. If you want, it's up to you. At the end of each show, Rob and I do a segment called Ask an Executive, where we open up to the audience in the chat an opportunity to ask us questions, because a lot of times they don't have access to executives in the police department. So we open it up to on topic, off topic, just ask us general questions if you want. If not, we could say goodnight and you can go and
we can do a couple, but just a few.
Right.
I never want to say no to something like that, because there's.
So now we have Ask an Executive, where Ron and Allison will answer questions from the chat. Look, I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you. Can you see it?
Right, do you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah. So now we have Ask an Executive, where Ron and Allison will answer questions from the chat. So please throw a couple of questions in there. I haven't been able to follow completely, so there were questions throughout the show. Normally we'll flag them, but today I didn't flag them. There's Delray 53, who always has a good question at the end of the show, and he says, "Do you think newly promoted sergeants that come from housing PSA or transit districts that go to a precinct is more challenging than the other way around?"
That come from PSA to a precinct rather
So they
than
were a cop in housing or a cop in transit. Now they're going to be a sergeant in city.
You're funny that you went to city like that was a separation 100 years ago. So no, I don't think that it's more challenging. I think, like you said, that the transition from cop to sergeant is challenging as it is. It's learning a new dynamic. The housing cops have to do more with less because they're spread so thin over the different housing developments. And, sometimes you can have only 2 cops in a development where, you had an entire platoon in the precinct. And the precinct's not always can be supportive because they have their own problems, in different areas. So I definitely think it's challenging to go, maybe it's more challenging to go to a sergeant in the PSA only because you're spread so thin. I think, but the difference is very minimal. Your leadership, the ability to know the law, the procedures, the guidelines, and to do your job and establish a team with your cops. It's going to transcend whether it's housing, transit, or precinct levels.
Yeah, and I'll say this, because I went as a cop in a precinct, a sergeant in a precinct, to a lieutenant in transit. So going from city to transit, I think, was very difficult in that I didn't understand the way transit, because the way you police in transit is different. The radio codes are even different. The way you interact with the transit authority, with what's called 6-wire, and knowing, when to turn, fighting with them to actually take, you would think as a city cop, especially, as emergency services, when you turn the power off, you turn the power off, that's it. How difficult it really is, and how much scrutiny there really is to turn the power off when there's a police incident, even when you're looking for a perp or whatever. So things like that. And if you come in there with this headstrong mentality, and, listen, I was like I said, a cop in the 7-0 and narcotics, and then a sergeant in the 7-8. And I went to transit thinking, oh, these cops, they're weak. I was sorely mistaken. and learned a lot from the cops in transit. And I've said this in the past. So I think it's more difficult to go the other way, to go from a precinct to a transit district, or even housing, because housing is different as well, dealing with the TAs and everybody else, and being spread out, like you said, and covering such a large difference, a large area, and how compact the community is. And there's just nuances that you didn't grow up with in your police officer position.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's a valid point. If we had to go more I've never worked in transit, but I do know the pushback that we got whenever we were demanding that the power be shut, because you had to keep those trains moving. You're not leaving those people in tunnels, but you got to know your job, do your job. Different jobs, but that's why we all work together. But yeah, I think that precinct life is easier because you're just not spread as thin. You have more resources, and you're kind of the again, like you're the big show, right? It was the precinct commander that was running the podium. I mean, the PSA commander is there, the transit commander is there, all the captains are there, all the investigative is there, but they're all support for you know, the main character on the podium that at that time. So no less important, but it's the precinct. You just have more.
It blew my mind how I remember one night I was a lieutenant in Transit District 32, and we had a suspicious package on a train, and they were holding in the station. So I went over and said, "Hold all trains north and south of the station going southbound," because the train's on northbound. But a southbound train is going to pass within 2 feet, 3 feet of the southbound train that I'm holding in the station with a suspicious package. If this thing blows while the train's going by, but they don't want to hear that.
Nope.
Crazy.
No, but traffic, because people. I mean, and it's hard. You go to a police involved shooting, and everybody goes to one of the major highways, and then all of the cops are there and right in the middle of it, and all of the traffic is shut down, and then you've got people in rush hour that are now 5 hours sitting in traffic. I mean, that's where you as an officer, as you go through the ranks, your view becomes broader and broader. So when the chief shows up at that shooting and goes, "Get the RMPs out of here," and then you get the cops going, "Well, that's what that's what he cares about." Well, his view is a lot different than and
he or she already knows that the other things have been taken care of, or has the foresight to say, "We're going to have to evacuate someone. We need."
And you have to multitask, right? Yeah. And it's through experience. It's because I've been in this situation where the ambulance can't get here because there's 60 miles of traffic backed up, and we can't. There's no way to get them in here. So it's really. It's a challenging thing, but again, I mean, we do the best we can.
Yeah. All right, this one's for you.
Okay.
New York City 26. If you were selected PC today, what would be the 3 top changes that you would make to the department's hierarchy, and past or present? Who would be your first step and your chief of department?
Well, I can't deal with what ifs and hypotheses, and I don't even know everybody who's still there and retired. I can't, I mean, I could pull back. I'd pull back my dad as my consigliere. It's like I can't answer that. I just there's talent. One of my mentors always told me, there's a lot of commanders that will go and but take people with them from command to command. And, they said to me, "You're missing out on new experience, new perspective, new talent by always surrounding yourself with the same people." So, I mean, I would have to get into that chair. I would have to see who's there, who wants to be part of the team. I think that my biggest thing and any leader's biggest thing is to build your bench. The only way you're a success is by making sure that those people that you're surrounding yourselves with, the next generation of leadership, that's your legacy. You're more than a parking spot, right? It's not about a title. It's about your legacy is making sure that the next leaders are progressing, and the police department's mission lives on with integrity. So I would have to get in there, know who's in there. Again, it's 4 years doesn't sound like a lot, but 5 minutes, everything changes. So I'm not even sure who's in the upper echelon. What I will say is I have worked with absolutely amazing people I have my subordinates, my peers, and my supervisors have been amazing people. So there's no shortage of people that I could pull to make sure that we progress forward in the police department.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. People have asked us that in the past. They've asked me that in the past, and it's true. The unfortunate part about it is the bench that we know of. There's limited availability to bring those people into, because they would have to be civilian positions, right? So you have to look at who's there. And again, you know, one of my commands that I was sent to, I was put on a mission to turn it around, and the borough commander wanted a supervisor's head on a platter to make a point. And I went and I was doing this evaluation, right? And I'm looking, and everybody was doing everything that I was asking for. Now, a lot of things had to change. A lot of ways things had to be done had to be changed. The whole direction and the type of enforcement that's being done had to be, you know, directed and have a purpose, not just a number. And everybody was responding. And I was getting yelled at by this chief. Ron, where's the name? What name, chief? I want the sergeant's name. Chief, listen, nobody's sticking their head up. Everybody's responding to my presentations and the way I want things done and the way I need things to be done. So I don't think it's fair just to lop a head off. And you know, I think that that's a fair assessment, what you say, in that, you know, we see things from the outside now. We see things in the newspaper. We see things on X. You know, we hear things about certain people. You need to go in and, you know, to be a prudent leader, you need to do a deep dive and look at what everybody's doing, and are they going to be responsive to the new administration? And the minute that they're not, goodbye. Then you start lopping heads. Then I have no problem with lopping the heads. But you also, like you
when
said,
you walk in as a commanding officer, your first couple of months is watching.
100%.
If you come in changing everything immediately, there's going to be no response. In fact, there's going to be pushback. But you watch, you see what you can and will keep, where you see what needs to be tweaked, you see what needs to be thrown out altogether, and you do it. You know, you do it prudently, slowly, you know, methodically. But it's definitely a sequence of events. It's not about going in and just killing people. Because then you're doing a disservice to your people. You don't even know. The commander before you may have just not gotten response because of personality clashes, or you don't know. You got to give the cops the opportunity to work for you. You know.
Yeah. All right. JMYL5MF. Would you return to the NYPD in some civilian capacity? I think we need more cops. I don't think they finished it, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't return as a cop. Obviously, I'm elderly at this point, and I've broken so many bones and on this job.
Here's the end of it. I think we need more cops as a supervisor. Yeah. So it's a compliment that will be good to come back.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I am pretty broken, so difficult to come back as a supervisor. But you know, I think. You know, I always wish the best for the police force. I think that if Tish stays, I want her to succeed. If she's replaced by any of the rumors, I want them to succeed.
Or anybody
replaced by anybody that's not in the rumors, I want them to succeed. So I wish the best for my department, for our department.
And 92 Charlie asked, what's your opinion on how Mayor Mondami is doing so far? I think you gave the politically correct
answer. My
opinion
about that. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
You know, that you don't think he's doing a great job, and you hope that he grows into the position.
Well, I think I don't even think I said that he wasn't doing a great job. I just think that I don't wish for an administration to fail, and I want.
That's the politically correct way of saying that.
Well, I can't wish for an administration. Well, no, not necessarily. It's just it's you come in, you get in your sea legs. I don't, whether I agree with things he's done so far or his, that's TBD. But I wish for success.
All right, I'm just seeing if there's anything else in here. Hunter says, at least you agree that the recruits must pass the 1.5-mile run.
Yeah, look, we need. I was always big on getting the cops into the gym at the precinct, getting them to work out. Can we do a Spartan together? Can we? Our job is very physical, and I think it's not about, oh, we don't want this type of person or this person's overweight. It's about saving lives, whether that's your own, your partner's, or a civilian. So it's important that we stay in some kind of relatively good shape and are able to protect ourselves.
Allison, we're 3 hours and 25 minutes in, and we have almost 700 viewers on all the different platforms right now. So you've been able to maintain a great audience. I'm sure the show is going to do great in the replay.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate them watching. Again, it's been a great conversation. And again, I wish the best for the cops, the city of New York, and the NYPD.
So I'm going to give you your final say in if there's anything that you think we didn't touch on or anything you want to say.
No, I would just, my message to our cops is keep true to who we are. Keep your hearts. It's hard not to get jaded on this job, but I always told my cops that it's not the 4 and 5 and 10 time perpetrator that you're doing this job for. At 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, look at some of the maybe the housing developments or the high rises in New York, and look at those lights that come on, and then watch that mother that comes out with a wet head because she's got to take 2 trains and a bus to get into the city to a job that she's going to work 12 and 15 hours there before she gets home as a single mom, and doing the best she can to keep her kids on the straight and narrow, out of problems, out of gang life. And that's who you're doing it for. So when you get jaded, and it does happen, when things don't go your way, just remember who we're doing this job for and who we are here. Because I believe in you, I believe in us, and I believe in what we do. And there's no more noble profession than putting your life on the line for someone you don't know. Well
said. I really appreciate it. Listen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. It was great catching up.
Yes.
If you can, just hang out for 2 seconds. I just got a little housekeeping at the end, and then I'll see you in the studio in 2 seconds. All right?
Okay. Sounds good. Thank
Allison,
you, everybody. Stay safe out there. Stay safe. Stay safe. Watch each other's backs.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Listen, that was a great interview. I really thank Allison for being on the show with us. Friday, John, Eric, and Marlon will be back at the Friday Roundtable talking about all the latest news and goings on in the NYPD and New York City. Go back and watch today's episode where they had the Antiheroes podcasters on. It was a great conversation. So check that out. And then you have they'll be back on Monday. Tuesday, 7:05 p.m. You have the 10-4 Tavern with Tommy Joyce and Pete Fuselli. And again, go back and watch last night's episode where they spoke with former NYPD Chief of Department and Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. That was a great interview. So go back and check that out. And then Rob and I will be back next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. With the next segment of the Executive Perspective. So until then, Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Everybody, stay safe.